Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium eSports coverage of the fourth round of the second season of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. The Salute to Service 130 live tonight from iRacing's virtual Michigan International Speedway in Brooklyn, Michigan. James Pike here, the voice of Podium eSports, alongside Taylor Burris and our producer, Ryan Bauer, as always. And this week, we have another special guest with us. Our great honor to be joined by Dave Mooney from the Motor Racing Network. And Dave, this is something that we've tried to arrange throughout the year, and it just hasn't quite come together. But you've taken a long interest in sim racing over the course of this year, especially as things have played out the way they have. And good to get you here finally tonight, especially for a car and track combo like this.
I'm happy to be here. Michigan A is one of my favorite racetracks over the years. One of the few tracks where you can get a legitimate four wide for laps and laps at a time. A little warmer at Sim Michigan than it is in the real thing tonight. They've got snow on the ground in Michigan, as I understand it. You know, and honestly, I just really enjoy the whole sim racing atmosphere that, you know, you were in the right place at the right time when the COVID-19 shutdown came, provided a real seamless transition between, you know, for race fans that were really hungry to keep things going. So I'm excited. I'm ready to go racing tonight.
Should be a lot of fun. Taylor, not only do we have a great car track combo in the super late models in Michigan, but heat racing for the first time tonight as well.
Certainly is, and it's going to provide a different aspect of racing for the drivers out here tonight. Of course, only right now, as we'll look later on, only the top 35 will be guaranteed a spot in tonight's race. And of course, with a lot of drivers coming in to compete because of how popular Monday Night Racing has become, a lot of people will not be able to race tonight, and several people will be going home, and possibly some well-known names. So we'll have to wait and see what will happen. Of course, the super late models at Michigan is a fan favorite. We saw this happening during the COVID pandemic with the Fox Sports broadcast running here, and last I checked in the relatives and timing and scoring, a certain former champion who won the last time we ran super late models at Michigan is currently up there near the top of the leaderboard.
Take a look at where we are in the world. Taylor, of course, referring to the 2000 NASCAR Cup Series champion Bobby Labonte, who makes his season debut in Monday Night Racing this evening. Now, this is a special night here on iRacing. This our military appreciation night in Monday Night Racing, and also, more importantly, the 79th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. So tonight, a special pre-race ceremony that honors our veterans, both active military, retired military, and those who we have lost. We present taps and then our national anthem, performed by the Glee Clubs of the United States Military and Naval Academies. And for the most famous words in motorsports this evening, we turn it over to Army Staff Sergeant and current iRacing member out of Manassas, Virginia, Tyler Payne.
My name is Staff Sergeant Payne with the United States Army, currently stationed at the Old Guard in Arlington, Virginia. I'm honored to be the Grand Marshal of the Salute Service 130 at Michigan International Speedway. On behalf of myself, the United States Army, and all of my brothers and sisters deployed overseas, gentlemen, start your engines.
Big round of thanks and appreciation to everybody involved in our opening ceremonies this evening. And now, for the first time in Monday Night Racing history, Taylor, we turn to the last chance qualifier lineup. 15 laps to determine the final 5 drivers in tonight's race. Gabe Wood is your pole sitter. He's followed by the man who won the season finale at Indianapolis in the IndyCar Joe Agee. Chris Wilder from the Motor Racing Network, one that Dave will know pretty well. In third, Garrett Miller start fourth. As you look through the rest of the field, big-time names coming up. Names who are high up in the points. Names who also have some real-world clout. Dylan Welch, another MRN and NBC reporter in the mix too. Chad Reed and Josh Slate complete your top 10 for this LCQ.
Certainly is, as we continue looking throughout the rest of the grid. Right now, Paul Sutton, who's been a contender in the first half of the season, currently starting in 11th, with Noah Lewis and Robbie Lyons rounding out your 14-car lineup for this last chance qualifier tonight, James. And it's going to be exciting because the draft's going to come into play here tonight in this last chance, and these drivers are going to be desperate to try to see if they can make the big show here later on tonight.
Now to explain, since we haven't had the chance to get some heat racing and Monday Night Racing all that much, this is a new feature that is being introduced this week. The first time we've had the chance to go to heats just to set our grid, but long story short, the demand to be involved in Monday Night Racing is so great that we have expanded everything to make sure that more drivers at least get a chance to qualify and be involved. So the top 30 drivers in the grid for tonight's race have locked in on time. They are already guaranteed a place in the show. It is these final 14 drivers who are going to race 15 laps, and the top 5 will advance to complete our 35-car grid. And Dave, I think this race, if anything, is going to be very, very indicative of what we're going to see the rest of the evening, which, from what the drivers have told me and said and posted on social media, is almost plate racing in a sense. A lot of 3 wide, 4 wide, drafting, bump drafting. It won't necessarily feel like a typical Michigan race, I think.
No, I think you're right about that. There'll be a lot to be said for working the air, being tucked in right behind the car in front of you, using the air, getting out of line only when you've got a good run of momentum and can suck up onto the back bumper of the car in front of you. So we're gonna see a lot of big track style tactics, I expect, tonight on a Michigan track where there's plenty of room and you can self-medicate if you've got a bad race car or a bulky race car. You can move up or down significantly on this racetrack and really change your line.
Though it might be a little bit greasy for these drivers. In-sim air temp right now, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. In-sim track temp, 102 degrees Fahrenheit. So a bit of a warm one tonight, but we're glad you're with us here on Podium eSports as we bring you round number 4 of Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring, the Salute to Service Military Appreciation 130 at Michigan International Speedway. Last chance qualifier is underway with Gabe Wood and Joe Agee to the point immediately. Wilner and Miller tucked in behind them, and they will stay 2-2 into turn 1 for the first time, Taylor Burris, but probably not for the last tonight.
Certainly will not as they get the speeds wound up through turns 1 and 2. A couple of cars had a little trouble on that start. Kyle McFadden did not get a good jump on that start of the race here tonight, allowing drivers such as Chad Reed to get around him, as Chad is going to make his way up through the field. He's going to take it 3 wide down into turn 3.
3 wide move to the inside, try to squeeze down low. 3 wide at Michigan is not the recipe for disaster that it is at a lot of other racetracks. Plenty of room for even a 4th or a 5th in an emergency.
I think the one driver I want to see in this race, and the only driver who didn't get a chance to set a qualifying time, Robbie Lyons, who was just on the call of the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge on the main Podium eSports Twitch channel. If you were watching there, as contact in the middle of the field, 1 car up the hill, way towards the back. Lots of people all over the place, and I believe it was Jesse Vaughn in the 26 who got that damage, Taylor.
Certainly was him, as well as the 78 of Greg Stump, got together in the middle of turns 1 and 2, setting them both up the racetrack and losing that valuable positions that they were in. Now they're having to struggle back their way up through the field, and not a lot of time left for them to do. And of course, Jesse lost that draft, so he is pretty much stuck out there in no man's land.
Trying to run down the pack from a long ways behind at Michigan can be really difficult to do unless you've got that. You lose the draft at Michigan, just like you do at Daytona or Talladega. And once you've lost it, boy, it's tough to get it back.
No cautions, no chances here to get that 26 on pit road. He needs a yellow to have any shot of making the feature race. That's the biggest issue. But to the point I was making before that contact, Taylor, Robbie Lyons, well, or how about not? Because another incident in the back of the field, they clearly don't want me to say anything.
They do not.
And this time, even more trouble. Looks like it's Josh Slate who is sideways, and now with engine damage, too, smoke pouring out in the rear end of the 48.
Yeah, contact between him and the 37 of Paul Sutton as they dived it down into turn 3 and 4. If you look at the replay, Sutton was able to get control of his race car, but for the 48 of Joshua Slate, his night is done here as he will be probably bringing it down pit road.
On the back straightaway, that's my Motor Racing Network colleague Chris Wilner. Front 3 right now are doing exactly what they need to do. Actually, you can add Reed to that as well. They've gotten in single file. They're running a good, tight aerodynamic formation, not doing a lot of peeking out of line, although Chad Reed goes to the inside to do exactly that here for third place.
And this is a very, I think, versatile car. We're seeing it. You wouldn't necessarily think about super late models at Michigan in real life. You'd think that this is a track a little bit too big for them, Taylor, but this is a special car since Ty Majeski, who you may have heard of over the weekend. He only went out and won the 53rd Snowball Derby after many, many years of trying. But Ty worked directly with iRacing to help rebuild the physics and the dynamics of this car from the ground up about a year and a half ago. And since then, the super late model went from one of the worst handling cars in iRacing to arguably one of the outright best cars, especially on the oval side. This is a car that those incredibly experienced in the sim love to get their hands on, especially when they can run it wide open like you can here at Michigan.
It certainly is a driver favorite on the iRacing service, and you're seeing that right now, even in this heat race. 3 wide battles, 2 wide battles, and of course the drafting here with these cars at Michigan is a great way to see the battles. As we see Dylan Welch get loose off of turn number 2, and is able to gather it up, but hits the wall on the back straightaway, and he is now outside looking in. And with that damage, I think his safety is going to fall back through the rest of the field.
Dylan's plummeting right now. Got a little too wide on the outside lane. Lost the rear end of the car momentarily. Either had to chase it up the banking or just couldn't get it back underneath him in time and got a piece of the rock up there. You knew that single file patient thing wasn't going to last very much longer.
I had a feeling that as we get closer towards the end, it was going to always come up in temperature a bit. The interesting thing now, though, is that especially with Dylan's contact in turn 2, or not. I was about to say that the top 5 were pretty well spread out, but yellow flag to bring everyone back together, Taylor. And for those drivers in the back of the field, the Josh Slates, the Jesse Vaughns, the Greg Stumps, even the Dylan Welches, those who needed to repair damage, all of a sudden, they get a lifeline.
They certainly do. I mean, one of the nice things about Monday Night Racing is that the admins give these guys a free fast repair, which means you come down pit road and have a brand new car waiting for you to use. And of course, though, it's only one. So if this is your one free safety line to where you can get back out on track and hopefully try to climb your way up into the top 5 here and guarantee a spot in the finale later on tonight.
Can confirm that this is a competition caution that race control is thrown at the halfway point of this LCQ. So an opportunity to regroup, an opportunity for everybody to catch their breath for a moment. But Dave, I think just sitting here, one thing that I've noticed is that for as large as these Lexan rear spoilers are on these super late models, everybody seems to be relatively trimmed out. These cars look like they are incredibly loose, tricky to handle in the corners, but I also feel like maybe to some degree that might be Michigan too. You think of Michigan as a fast track, a wide track, but you look at the numbers, they're only 18 degrees of banking here, which is actually a little bit less than what you would find at, a Chicagoland or a Charlotte or Atlanta, Texas. There's not as much banking to help you here as you would think. And I feel like some of these drivers have been lulled into trying to use that banking to lean into the corners, get a little bit more in corner entry, but instead they find themselves losing the rear ends.
Well, that's exactly right. You you can solve a race car by moving up or down on the banking, but there's not enough banking, not enough degrees here to completely heal an ill-handling race car. And as we've seen tonight, this is not a place with the speeds that they run. This is not a place where you want to make even incidental contact. You can loosen yourself up or another car up just by getting close in these corners at the speeds that they're running. So you've got to give a little personal space, particularly in the corners here at Michigan, or things can get in in a big hurry.
If we're looking for more analogies, Taylor, I almost wonder if we lean back to the Gen 4 cars and the way they raced on the super speedway tracks, where they were oh so finicky to get a hold of if you managed to bump drive somebody the wrong way. Now, Michigan, of course, is a little bit smoother than, say, old Talladega with the concrete or the old pave of Daytona before it was repaved in 2011, but I feel like the same principle applies. And when I went back and watched the replays, the footage of the practice races leading up to tonight, that's something that came through on the video. It's something that the drivers have said in the lead up to this race, that if you try and bump drive someone, you need to get tucked up right behind somebody in order to maximize the advantage and the effectiveness of the draft. But at the same time, you touch them the wrong way. Like Dave said, you're going around, you're in trouble very, very quickly.
It certainly is the case. We've seen that during the practice, like you brought out, especially when drivers decide to experiment and try that in the corners. That's going to be a big no-no here tonight. We've seen drivers, even in this heat race, try to get lined up in the bumpers and unfortunately could not make it work. In fact, getting cars loose, or worse yet, spinning them out of the race. So thankfully for this caution, that gives them a chance to get back out on track. But we're going to have to wait and see if they're going to learn anything and apply that to try to get them a good finishing spot here tonight once we get ready to go back green flag racing, which should be next time by.
Lights are off on the pace car, so we will indeed get the green next time by on lap 11 of 15. So 5 laps to figure out which 5 drivers will advance into tonight's feature. And I think maybe of note, those top 3, Wood, AG, and Wilner, Dave, haven't changed since the drop of the green. The drivers who qualified 1, 2, 3 in this LCQ running 1, 2, 3 as we approach what could be the last restart of the race.
Well, they've got fast race cars for sure, but they've also driven a very smart race so far. They've gotten, for the most part, in single file formation, haven't gotten real antsy about looking outside or inside and going 2 and 3 wide at this juncture. There'll be plenty of time for that in the final couple of laps of this heat race, but for right now, what we saw early is that 3 or 4 cars in a single file line can break away from that pack, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them do that, the exact same thing again here on the restart.
Question will be, who will recognize the importance of working together to make sure that you are in the top 5 to run for the big show, and who will try and make that run for glory or throw the presumptive Hail Mary to try and get into the show. If you're a little bit buried in this field, like maybe a Noah Lewis, a Dylan Welch, we know he's got no fear and won't be afraid to be aggressive. A Paul Sutton, Michael Massey, who's got experience near the front in former Monday Night Racing events. So keep our eyes peeled and see who makes that charge from the back as the restart comes on lap 11 of 15, and a little bit of wheel spin, I think, from the front too, but it's stacked up a lot of the back, and the man who takes advantage of it all and jumps to the outside, then to the inside, and gives a bump to Chad Reed in the 22 was Dylan Welch, who then turned Chad Reed as there was another incident over in turn 1 between Paul Sutton and the 78 of Greg Stump. Taylor?
A lot of chaos happening on that restart right there, but we're going to finally keep going. No caution here in this heat race, so that we're still going to be under green flag conditions. But Dylan Welch with a head of steam now. He's going to try to go for 4th position as they dive it down into turn 3, going to the outside of Kyle McFadden. But Noah Lewis, though, with a head of steam looking to the inside as he'll now move into the 5th spot off of 4.
We'll see what Dylan Welch can do up in that outside lane. He got a great jump at the start, picked up a couple of spots 3 wide to the outside, and now right there in the 14 car on the outside lane, if he can tuck up on the back bumper of that car in front of him, close in a little bit, he's going to have a good shot at getting this car qualified.
Feel like this is going to be the first litmus test as to whether or not we're going to see the inside of the outside line work, but we won't see Kyle McFadden in the feature. He got turned on the exit of turn 2 by Noah Lewis in the 98, and all of a sudden, look who's in the top 5, Taylor Burris. It's that 14 car of Dylan Welch fighting Jesse Vaughn for the final transfer spot.
And remember, Jesse Vaughn actually blew an engine, so he was definitely hoping for a caution, and now he's going to look at a shot to get into the feature race here tonight as they come across the line. It will be 3 laps to go here, and he is sitting in that 5th spot, but Dylan Welch is going to try and hold strong on the outside. He's got a couple of cars to his outside as well to try to utilize the draft to help pull him back around Jesse Vaughn, but it's going to be tough as now to the outside is Joe Adke.
He goes wide to the outside. He is beginning to fall back here. Lost the lead to Chris Wilner. Now beginning to fall back perilously close to losing himself that final qualified spot. Here's where it starts to get a little more aggressive. Agee cuts down across the nose, trying to hold off that inside run off turn 4.
Agee with that big move to lock down the 5th spot, at least for the moment, but Noah Lewis and Jesse Vaughn will have something to say about it over the course of the next 2 laps. Meanwhile, Wilner and Garrett Miller in the 36. We've not mentioned the 36 much, Taylor, but he's just been very calm, very consistent, riding around in second, and I think the front 2 are happy to finish 1-2 in that order just to make sure they are in the big race in a little bit.
Yeah, they're not really focused on battling each other, just wanting to take it home to the checkered flag as they dive it down into turns 3 and 4. The main battle is right there in that 5th spot. You see 4 or 5 cars under a blanket trying to hold on and get into the main feature race. Right now as Dylan Welch looks to the inside of Gabriel Wood for 3rd place, as Joe Agee will now try to get a bump to him down across the start-finish line.
A bit of a bump draft as they head down into turn number 1. Agee looks down to the inside. Looks like Welch trying to crowd him down a little bit further. That's going to cost Dylan Welch as they kick him now 3 wide to the outside, and they make contact off turn 2.
Big wreck in the back, and Dylan Welch is still in 5th for the moment, but Jesse Vaughn has the clean car. If Vaughn can get a run, it may, just may, be enough to take away that 5th and final transfer spot. Wilner, Miller, Wood, and Agee look set to finish in that order. It's between the 14 and the 26 for the final spot in the main race tonight, and Vaughn got a decent run out of turn 4, but it won't be enough to supplant Dylan Welch, who will get the 35th and a final spot in the grid.
What a race right there on the final lap. We saw a lot of controversy, a lot of beating and banging, and of course now we know who our final 5 drivers will be in tonight's feature race. But for Chris Wilner and Garrett Miller, that's got to be a big momentum boost. For those 2 to be running out in the top 2 all that race, that means that they can have a shot of working their way up through the field and maybe taking home the checkered flag.
Feel like the pressure is off, and at least now you can breathe a little bit, but there's a difficult, I think, mind frame shift that you have to make in this spot, Dave, if you're any one of these 5, because we saw how aggressive it got at the end of that LCQ, and now these drivers are going to have to roll back and gear it back in for 65 laps. A much different race, I think, you're going to see from the top 35 than what we just saw, at least until we get to maybe 10 to go.
It was a really interesting LCQ. At the front of the pack, you had 2 or 3 guys, not ironically, the 3 guys that finished 1, 2, 3 at the end were the 3 that avoided all the contact. They weren't out there 3 wide, bouncing off each other and trading paint. They were keeping it pretty much single file, keeping their speed up. Everybody behind them, it was Pandalarium behind them for 4th, 5th, 6th on back. But at this point now, you're on to the main event. You got a nice long race to settle in. Now they just need to get their blood pressure back down to normal levels before they get set to go again.
Chris Wilner, Garrett Miller, Gabe Wood, Joe Agee, and Dylan Welch, your 5 that transfer out of the final LCQ. It's now time to turn to the starting grid for our feature race this evening, which sees the mechanic for Kyle Busch Motorsports, Max Kinnon, put down a 40.976 to take the top spot over Xfinity Series driver Josh Bilicki. A few other big-time names, though, you'll see at the front. Garrett Smithley, Cup Series driver, in there in 3rd. DJ Cummings, who was in the championship 4 a year ago. Anthony Alfredo, who's running on a borrowed set from his friends at SimSeats tonight, so we'll see if the difference in set changes the way he runs. Nick Sanchez and Jason Keffer completing your top 10. Taylor?
As we go a little bit through the field right now, we see Michael Rossi starting in 11th with Podium eSports, Gary Sexton in 12th. And then as we go a little further down to about the 15th, 16th position, we see Kobe Moore. And of course, SCCA MX5 champion or Spec Miata champion Preston Pardis, and NASCAR Xfinity driver, starting 16th. Ford Martin, the owner of Monday Night Racing, will be starting in the 17th position, with Colic Racing's very own owner Chris Rice in 18th. Raja Karuth will be starting in 20th.
How about some heavy hitters in 21st and 22nd? You've got two former Xfinity Series champions and a Cup Series championship between Bobby Labonte and Jeff Green. They're there as well, along with your welcome, Steve Offline. Brandon Brown, the man behind Richmond Raceway Esports. If you've seen their fantastic Twitter or any of the work that they've done on the esports side of things, Brandon Brown is the man behind that car. Look for his JD Laird painted scheme to line it up from the 24th spot on the grid. Further back, Ryan Vargas and Ron Capps of the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the NHRA in tonight's race 2. As we take a look at the track facts here briefly, this is Michigan International Speedway, the 2-mile racetrack, 3.2 kilometer circuit that opened in 1968. 18 degrees of banking in the corners here, 12 degrees of banking on the front stretch, and 5 degrees of banking on the back stretch in the Irish Hills of Brooklyn, Michigan. Tonight we go for 65 laps, 130 miles, 208 kilometers, 3 attempts at a green light checker if we need them, and 2 fast repairs available to the field in this feature race of the Salute to Service 130 at Michigan. As we order our troops in the 4th round of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing, we are underway from the Wolverine State as Kennan and Balicki will go door to door into turn 1 for the first time. Taylor?
Diving it down into turn 1, getting the speeds up there with these drivers as they try to get in the right position to set up for a run down the back straightaway for the first time. A couple of drivers still remaining side by side, 2 by 2 as they go down the back straightaway. No major battles right yet as now they get themselves single file and so they through the field heading into turn 3.
Max Kennan trying to show the way into turn number 3. He's got to buy about a half a car length, but he's going to be hard-pressed to hang on to that lead for very long. As a matter of fact, he's going to lose it in turn number 3. For the most part, everybody pretty patient, pretty calm here on the opening green flag of this race.
Seems like just off of what we saw at that first lap, the inside line might be where you want to be. The run that Josh Balicki got to the inside of Kennan in 3 and 4 was nothing short of impressive. It makes me wonder if these cars are going to start sliding up the racetrack, though, as these tires wear off. Tire wear on the super late models isn't necessarily something that we can talk a lot about, that we know a lot about in sim, Taylor. It's not necessarily something that we see as they bounce off each other down the back straightaway, but something we'll definitely watch for as this race progresses.
Yeah, that was a close call for Max Kennan and Stephen Wilson. Stephen being the younger brother of the late, great Justin Wilson of IndyCar. He's trying to have a great run here tonight, sitting in 3rd position as he holds off Joshua Balicki and Nick Sanchez as they come across the line.
Good track awareness there by Stephen Wilson because he saw that they were getting a little tight on the outside of him, a couple of cars bouncing off each other. He was able to dive down below the yellow line there momentarily to give them a little extra room and keep himself out of harm's way, and as a result, he's right in the midst now of a good side-by-side battle for the number 3 position.
Underneath that 25 and just behind him, the 96 of Nick Sanchez, who's making his debut in Monday Night Racing Season 2 this evening. And Sanchez probably going to have a good rapport with Raja Caruth a little bit further back in the field. Raja made a season debut last week. Sanchez in this week. Both drivers for Rev Racing down to the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. And we're at Nick Sanchez, a member of the NASCAR Next Class 2. So the man from Miami, Florida, who had an incredible start to his Legends campaign at the Summer Shootout at Charlotte Motor Speedway a few years ago, has been making names for himself since, quickly working his way up the ladder. Probably an Arc of Arms ride for him, I think, in the future, Taylor Burris. But the young man from Miami doing a very nice job early on, currently sitting 4th.
And that's one of the great things about Monday Night Racing. You know, we see all the major stars that have been in NASCAR and IndyCar, NHRA, but we also get to see some of the future stars that could come up through the sports in any platform that we have that comes out here and races. We see that with Caruth and Sanchez here tonight, and Nick Sanchez doing a great job. And then last week, we saw Caruth having a great run. So it's great to see some of the future members of NASCAR or motorsports coming up in here to put on a good show for us here tonight as we see Stephen Wilson try to take the lead away from Garrett Smithley off turn 2.
A good low-line run as he heads off turn 2 and down the back straightaway. He's got about a half a car length advantage, but he hasn't got a lot of drafting help. You can see that outside line really rooting and gouging in that outside lane. Maybe a little bit too much as they make their way into turn number 3. As the challenge now on the inside lane, Stephen Wilson looking to go for the lead off turn number 4.
Inside is definitely faster, but do you burn off your tires faster as well? As Nick DeGroot, winner a week ago, goes flying through the grass behind all of this. But let's see if DeGroot can regroup here. He's more of an open wheel guy. I think he'll take his win from last week, Will, the defending series champion. But conveniently 3 wide, maybe 4 wide for second. Contact between Sanchez and Anthony Alfredo goes down to the apron, Taylor.
Close battles right there, and that also allowed Garrett Smithley to get in contact with the outside walls. More cars are having trouble. DJ Cummings spins around at the infield of the racetrack, along with, I believe, another driver. That's the 90 of Preston Pardis, who also was involved in that incident. So tough break for those two drivers as they get back out on the racetrack and continue on their way, but with damage to their race car and possibly about to go a lap down here in the next few seconds, it's going to be a tough break for them to get work back up through the field.
You could see a lot of really hard racing in the very early going. Still just under 60 laps remaining, and a lot of guys being very, very aggressive virtually from the drop of the green flag in this one. But again, at the front of the pack, the guys that are running well are the guys that are being calm, not making a lot of crazy moves, not getting into those 3 and 4 wide equations, just putting some laps on these cars and getting themselves settled in here in the early going.
I almost wonder, Taylor, if the smart play, and something that I think we're seeing from the front 3, is to maybe treat running around other drivers as if you were in maybe more of like an Indy car, an open wheel car, instead of running these light full body stock cars. We know how light the super late models are in comparison to just about every other stock car, both in the service and in real life. And it's so easy to get these things upset and moved that maybe you think about it like you're an open wheel driver and just try and avoid touching people outright. Maybe that saves you more.
It certainly does help a little bit. We see that right now as Stephen Wilson has pulled out to one of the biggest gaps that we've seen all night, to about 0.3 of a second, and continuing to make that work. And as we see that for the rest of the field, they're trying to give a little bit of room, especially since we are still early on in tonight's race. So a couple of drivers being smart, taking their time, realizing that they only have one faster pair. So if they waste it now, that means if they get caught up in another incident again later on tonight, that means their night is done. So they are wanting to just take their time, race the track that's ahead of them, because it's just as difficult with how difficult it is on corner exit with how loose this car is. And of course, Dave, you see that going on right now as they dive it into turn 3.
It's going to be very interesting to see how, if at all, this track changes over the course of the 65-lap race. Usually, on the real Richmond, Michigan, it changes dramatically over the course of the race. Usually at the start of an event, the bottom is by far the fast way around. Outside lanes just don't work at all. But over the course of a long 400 or 500 mile run, the rubber gets put down higher and higher on the racing surface, and those outside lanes become a place where you can really hold your momentum and build some speed. We'll see if that happens here tonight.
I'm inclined to believe, based on how many drivers have already been running the outside lane, that second groove should come in at some stage. Just not totally sure when it will come in and to what degree it will be effective versus the bottom, especially in the second half of this race. But Nick Sanchez out in front, Stephen Wilson, Garrett Smithley in that trio just behind the 96, and they had pulled out to, maybe call it a 2 or 3/10 second lead over the man who is now in 4th place and has driven up from 7th, but someone who we talked about time in, time out, week in, week out at the start of this second season of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. Matthew Stallknecht out of NASCAR has had a fantastic start to this season. Absolutely no other way around it. He comes into tonight 5th in the point standings, and the number 41 machine looks stout once again in MNR competition.
Well, look at another driver who's running in 6th position. One of the co-owners of Carlyle Racing, Chris Rice, started 18th at the drop of the green flag. He's now up to 6th position and now trying to run down Max Kennan right now, right up in front of him as Kennan tries to get around Matt Stallknecht as they come off of turn number 2. A little bit of slight contact between those two drivers, but as they go down the back straightaway, Chris Rice now having to go side by side with Anthony Alfredo. A great battle and a great run early on for that number 16 of Chris Rice.
You could see how getting another car up close on that right rear corner of Chris Rice's number 16 car just wanted to pull the back end of that machine around. And the driver on the outside can really control that bottom car to a certain degree by getting there down close, packing that right rear fender well full of air, and trying to pull the right rear corner of that car around and force the driver to the inside to back off.
We're looking at other names who have made charges early on in this race. You mentioned Chris Rice, Taylor. The other one Other two maybe we need to talk about. How about Jeff Green from 22nd to 8th and Raja Karuth from 20th to 9th, both up in excess of 10 spots. Those two, as it stands, are some of your hardest chargers in the race. With the 29 of Ryan Vargas, but not before Gary Sexton goes around as the yellow flag comes out in turn 4. Incident between Sexton and Karuth in the 99, who I think we properly just commentators cursed in a blink of an instant there, Taylor. But those two coming together in 3 and 4 to bring out our first yellow.
Yeah, it started as they entered turn 3. Josh Balicki decided to dive it down to the bottom of the racetrack, taking them 3 wide, making slight contact with Gary Sexton. Sexton then goes right up into Raja Karuth and putting both cars up into the outside tire or outside walls right there. And unfortunately for them, they're going to be using their fast repair early on here tonight as they'll come down pit road to get that car fixed.
Josh Balicki got a great run down to the inside, but as we were talking about a few minutes ago, you take the air off the right side of that race car, loosens up the right rear corner. He had to chase it up the banking, and there was just no room. And before you know it, it's a 3-car wreck coming off turn 2.
Big incident over in 2 and 4. You're right on board with Balicki. You see just how close he was. He was absolutely sawing the wheel to make sure that the car stayed underneath him, but kept it in one piece. Can't quite say the same for Sexton or for Karuth. However, there are 2 fast repairs that the drivers have that they're able to use. I think the difference, though, this week, Taylor, as you see the field come down pit road for the first time, is that if you get any sort of damage here, Michigan is an aero-sensitive racetrack. And a track where if you have any sort of cosmetic damage to upset the aero balance of your car whatsoever, it will absolutely affect your top speed. And at that point, you will need to get a fast repair. So that the threshold for repairs, I think, is much lower here in Michigan than it would be it's a Bristol or a Martinsville or a shorter racetrack where aerodynamic damage doesn't matter as much.
Now, certainly when it comes to tracks such as Bristol or Martinsville, you could pretty much just run without the front clip for the most part here on the iRacing surface and keep on going. Unlike here in Michigan, you kind of need that aerodynamics in order to continue having competitiveness in your race tonight. So a big break for a couple of drivers such as Karuth and Gary Sexton. Also, from early on incidents, DJ Cummings along with Preston Pardis get to now catch back up to the tail end of the field to where they can now be in a shot with the draft when we go back green flag racing. And I'm looking at timing and scoring right now. Drew Welker is going to be your race leader unless he missed his pit box. That's going to be a big interesting to see that 64.
64 stayed out, can confirm. So, pit strategy for the 64 of Drew Welker. We'll find out how it plans out for him in just a moment, but we're going to step away for a moment and go side by side so you don't miss any of the action on the yellow flag. This Podium eSports coverage of the Salute to Service 130 at Michigan International Speedway continues right after this.
We are an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. We don't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach to flooring, and neither should you. When you choose Tufco, we consult with you about your needs, industry requirements, and factor in numerous variables. After assessing your facility, we engineer your floor and drains, then install everything ourselves. That's the Tufco way.
Visit our website at tufcoflooring.com.
Back as Podium eSports coverage of the Salute to Service 130 at Michigan continues. James Pike here with Taylor Burris and MRN's Dave Mooney up high atop Michigan International Speedway as we get set for our first restart of the evening, which will come on lap 17 of this 65-lap feature race. Drew Welker has stayed out on 16-lap-old tires to take the lead and charge from about mid-pack. He was running around the 20th position before the yellow flag came out, so it's a pit strategy play for Welker, Dave, but I guess the question is, how much do you really want fresh tires here at Michigan in these SLOs?
We're going to go to school here now and find out the answer to that question because, like you said, he's got 16 laps on these tires. Michigan is usually not a terrible track in terms of tire wear, but then again, we don't know a lot about these super late models either. They're carrying a lot less weight than a truck or an Xfinity or certainly a Cup car would. It's going to be very interesting to see how well Drew Welker can hang in on this restart. If he can hold even a top 5 to 7 position after staying out for the track position, I guarantee there'll be some other people that are going to school on that and making some notes.
Might not have worked out so well, though, because he spun the tires before we even got to the start-finish line. And Nick Sanchez almost, I think, got a penalty for going below the yellow line. I don't think he was clear of the 64 before they got past the start-finish line. But Garrett Smithley now, Taylor Burris, is the leader exiting turn 2.
Yeah, Drew Welker right now is struggling right now, almost making contact with Anthony Alfredo as they go down the back straightaway here. But it is definitely a tough call for him. As you see, the fresh tires from drivers such as Max Kennan, Stephen Wilson, easily going to go by him through turns 3 and 4 as Garrett Smithley starts to pull away and lead Nick Sanchez with him as the top two back up in front once again.
Anthony Alfredo rides in the number 3 position. Welker just trying to hang on to that top 5 right now. I don't think he came into that restart with the expectation that he was going to be able to run away and lead. But if he can hang on to the top 5, as we got some cars tangling up in the back of the pack, if he can hang on to that top 5 or 7, he might consider that a pretty good trade.
Not a bad trade at all, especially if it comes down now. Second yellow flag of the evening in turn 4. And Josh Bilicki was the first one to go around. You see Beaudoin on your screens, but the 53 in trouble to start this. And we'll take a look at it on the instant replay, show you all what happened in just a moment. But from what I could tell, Brandon Brown and Bilicki come together in turn 4. And Brandon texted me and made the point, and I quote, that if I do something to make the broadcast tonight, let them know that I am not the Xfinity Series driver. And he said that half in jest, but in some cases, I think it may be appropriate here because there was contact between the 12 and the 53 to start this round. So that is Richmond Raceway Brandon Brown, not Xfinity Series driver Brandon Brown. Important to make that delineation. So don't go tweeting Brandon Brown 68. It's Brandon Brown WV. If you're the Bilicki camp, you can send the angry letters to Taylor.
I can only imagine if people did start sending it to NASCAR Xfinity driver Brandon Brown. Brandon probably looking at his tweets like, what in the world's going on here? And then he'll have to hopefully turn on Podium eSports and see Monday Night Racing and be like, oh, that's what they're talking about. So thankfully, though, these guys will come down pit road, get their fast repair if they have not used it on the previous caution. So we'll have to see what these drivers decide to do towards the back half of the field.
To be interesting to see is we've got now a couple of handful of guys that have had to use that fast repair here in the early going with 47 laps still to go. Whether the tempo of this race calms down a little bit. There's been a lot of 3 and 4 wide racing very, very early on. But if you've gone to pit road and you've burned up 50% of your fast repairs, you're going to have to take it a little easy for a while. We'll see if that impacts the tempo of this race going forward.
Maybe ride in the back a little bit just to keep yourself out of that and do, I guess, a Kyle Busch at a plate track on the field, which worked out pretty well for him a few weeks ago. He got the victory at Talladega with the Earnhardt S Charge in the final restart after laying back in the very back of the field for a good chunk of that race. As we look and see who else may have come away with a little bit of damage. Roger Diebold was involved in the incident, as was Gabe Wood, who came out of that LCQ. Madonia was the other one who picked up damage at the very end of proceedings there. So not too many cars involved, but a handful that will need to use the fast repair and be down one, as Dave said, this early in the race. As we continue tonight's broadcast, we remind you that our coverage of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Tufco Flooring. Tufco Flooring is an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. Tufco doesn't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach, and neither should you. Tufco listens to your needs and requirements and develops custom solutions for every client. And for more information, you can visit their website at tufcoflooring.com. And it is Garrett Smithley who now is in control of the field in the 52 machine. Coming to Green Flag Racing here at Michigan, Taylor Burris. And Smithley, been up there, but not necessarily this close to the front. Same story, I think we could say, for NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Anthony Alfredo, who we've not mentioned, but I have noted has been consistently top 10 throughout this feature.
He certainly has been definitely one to watch here tonight as they continue on their way. But Anthony Alfredo probably looking for that first career Monday Night Racing victory here. And here at Michigan, he might have a shot at doing that. Of course, a lot of people probably also wondering if another driver who currently is, in fact, defending Michigan late model winner, Bobby Labonte, he was up towards the back half of the field towards the start of that race on FS1. Will he make his way up through the field when we go back Green Flag Racing towards the end? So a lot of things to consider, a lot of things to talk about as we continue racing. Of course, a great run so far as well for Stefan Wilson. I mean, he's been all over the place over the past couple of days. In fact, competed in the iRacing Invitational Rallycross Championship this past Saturday, and now he's out here taking it to the high banks of Michigan here. So it's a great job for Stefan Wilson here tonight, running in 8th place in that number 25.
Smithley, Nick Sanchez side by side in row number 1, and Anthony Alfredo on the inside of Max Kennett in row 2. Drew Welker and Jeff Green, who's passed a lot of cars in a very short time at the start of this race. We'll see what he can do as they launch from the number 6 position.
Jeff Green, fun fact, I was researching a little bit earlier, never actually won an Xfinity Series race here at Michigan. Best finish, you have to go back a few years, not too many, but back into his heyday, that 2002 season when he ran the Rockwell Automation 21 for Richard Childress, finished 3rd that day. We'll see if he can go 2 spots better tonight as Sanchez immediately ducks to the inside of Smithley for the race lead, Tim.
They always saw Smithley try to throw that block before they got into turn 3, but Sanchez will not be denied. He will slot his car up in front as Anthony Alfredo will give him a push. Now he'll dive to the bottom of the racetrack, right up there by the grass, but cannot get the pass completed. A great job for Sanchez to try and throw the block on him, as here comes Jeff Green as they'll go 3 wide into turns 1 and 2. Contact is made between Anthony Alfredo and Garrett Smithley, and now Ryan Vargas in that number 6 will come to the inside. He will try to slot into that 2nd position down the back straightaway.
The man on the move right now is Jeff Green. He is in a 3-wide battle now. The red car to the extreme outside, trying to take over the number 2 position. He gets a little help going into turn 3. All the way up the banking, keeps it out of the wall, but it's going to cost him a handful or 2 of positions as they exit turn 4.
He hip-checked people coming into turn 1 the last time by, and then got hip-checked coming into turn 3. So maybe a bit of turnabout being fair play for the 38 machine, but still in the top 10. And that also means that the hardest charger of this race, how about Ryan Vargas, scored as the 6th, running the 26 paint scheme on your screens with the Eric Beaudoin livery on his car, supporting all the work that he does in the motorsports industry. But Ryan Vargas with a very, very solid run as more cars rack a little bit further back. We'll see if it brings out the yellow flag, and it does. Incident over in turn 3, and a few cars sideways and around. One of them is Garrett Miller. Stephen Ellis running a similar Beaudoin paint scheme to the one Vargas is running, also part of the problem over in turn 3, too.
Yeah, the incident started between Gary Sexton, Dylan Welch, and Kobe Martin, or Kobe Moore. Kobe Moore gets into the back bumper of Welch. Welch then spins Gary Sexton around, and then the rest is, as we see on screen, multiple cars going all over the place, some cutting through the grass to avoid that incident, but unfortunately a tough break for some of those drivers, and I believe that might be Gary Sexton's final use of a fast repair if he's not used it already. So a tough break for the Podium eSports member, Gary Sexton, out there in that number 13.
Been an interesting night already for my buddy Dylan Welch from the Motor Racing Network. Dylan, of course, a top-notch midget driver, has competed in the Chili Bowl and a number of other major events around the country. He's been in about, I think it's at least 4, and it might even be 5 different incidents tonight, but I don't know that he's ever gotten turned completely the wrong way. He's done a really good job of just bouncing off the debris and the other spinning cars, as you'll see he does again here. Kind of gets hooked in the left rear corner, gets turned down the racetrack. Now, believe it or not, he keeps it pointed. I mean, you talk about putting the dirt racing experience to good use. He was dirt tracking there, and he came away without actually wrecking the car.
I was about to say that is midget experience coming into play on asphalt ovals at its finest there. And Dylan, I think, is in a very interesting position. You look at the way that 14 is set up, a little bit of nose damage, but not too much, enough to where he, I think, is one of the rare cases. And given the way this race is played out, I think this is a valid question. It's one we bring up every week, Taylor, but the idea of saving your fast repairs, and maybe not necessarily using all your fast repairs up early. Now, you may be somebody like Gary Sexton, who's been turned twice and doesn't really have a choice. There was significant damage on that 13 car in both of the incidents he's been. But if you're somebody like Dylan Welch, is this a case where you maybe hold off and ride on the Mac and just hang with it for a bit until maybe you get to lap 40, lap 50, and then you decide to use your fast repairs up when you need a clean car the most?
Well, the good news with these fast repairs is you can make the choice of whether to use it or not if you come down pit road. Now, we could see Dylan Welch come down pit road to try to fix that nose a little bit, maybe try to get a little bit of beaten out a little bit. But he can choose not to use that fast repair and just sit on pit road to get that damage fixed. That way he saves that fast repair and is able to get back out on the racetrack with that damage fixed. It still will be a little bit of an issue to a degree, but it'll at least still be somewhat competitive for him to continue out on the racetrack compared to somebody like Gary Sexton or Raja Karuth earlier on, who just made hard, heavy impacts to the outside walls. So it could be a good strategy play for Dylan Welch to just come down pit road, get a small bit of it fixed, and then get back out onto the track and continue on and save that fast repair. That's one of the biggest strategy things you can do in the Monday Night Racing, is when to use the fast repair. We saw that a couple of weeks ago with Kyle Busch doing that intersecting strategy call, and we've seen it time and time again with several other drivers throughout the season. So that's going to be the big key. When to use that fast repair is going to be critical tonight.
This race still 2/3 yet to run. You don't get the impression that we're going to get any long runs of green flag racing. It's been pretty choppy here so far, a halting start to say the least. I've got to believe if you're out of fast repairs at this point, or even if you're down to your final one, I think I'd go with that second option and just ride around out there for a while, log some laps, stay on the lead circuit, and maybe save that last fast repair until we get down to 10 or 15 to go.
Maybe the most unique of all the strategy plays you can make in iRacing, something, of course, very unique to the game, where instead of coming back with, as one NASCAR Hall of Famer Tony Stewart once put it, 150,000 or 200,000 worth of tore-up race cars coming back to the shop, at iRacing, sometimes all you have to do is just check the little box in your information screen on the bottom right, and all of a sudden, all of that damage magically goes away. Fun little piece of sim racing that we bring to you on Monday Night Racing. But the lights are off in the pace car, the green flag to come back out on lap 27 of 65, and it is Nick Sanchez to lead us to green over Anthony Alfredo. Oh no, Drew Welker did not come down pit road under that yellow, so he is saving his tires for all he can, but we go back to it as Sanchez continues to go. But how about Garrett Smithley to the middle this time in turn one, potentially to the race lead?
Up through the middle in turns 1 and 2. He will get second away from Anthony Alfredo as he works that outside groove, trying to make it work and stick for him as they go down the back straightaway. He gets his nose just out barely in front of Nick Sanchez now as he gets some help from Anthony Alfredo. Garrett Smithley will try to take the lead as they enter down into turn 3.
Smithley's got that outside lane, and he's got plenty of drafting help up high, but the bottom is the short way around. Nick Sanchez trying to take that short way, now moves up the banking a little bit, nearly gets into the Garrett Smithley machine, but they're going to get away off turn 4.
I wasn't sure Sanchez was trying to crowd the 51 or if he just got tight underneath the 51, but they almost made contact in the middle of the corner. It was very close, and there's not much between these front 4, front 5, front 6 cars. Very little space, very little room for error as they come off of 2.
It certainly is. You can put probably 8 cars under a blanket as they work their way down the back straightaway, almost taking it 4 wide before they enter turn 3. They back it down just a little bit to about 2 wide as they dive it down into turn 3 and 4. Stephen Wilson, Anthony Alfredo going side by side for that 4th position as they come off of turn 4. But Garrett Smithley, holding strong, actually throws the block on Nick Sanchez to prevent him going past Ryan Vargas.
Sanchez, I think, running a smart race right now. Not getting excited, not trying to cram that car back down into that low line, just continuing to run that outside lane. When he gets crowded, he gives up a little room. The difference between running 2nd and 3rd right now with 37 laps to go, negligible. He's just keeping that car clean, and I think that's the right way to go.
He'll look to the inside of Vargas, who will go to the outside. And Ryan Vargas is someone that we've talked about on the Monday Night Racing broadcast as Sanchez goes back to the inside to try and get around Smithley, but to no avail. Last week, we touched on the innovative partnership he put together with TikTok. He had a little help from the folks at the Truex Management Group, and they came together and got that 6-race deal at the end of the 2020 Xfinity Series season. The other thing, though, that Vargas has been doing and has been tweeting about a lot, as he is wont one of the more active drivers in the NASCAR world on Twitter. But Ryan has been a huge proponent of using iRacing to get his racing fix in the off season. And when he can't necessarily drive in real life, he'll just hop on his rig, get in the sim, and try and log a few laps as they go 3 wide for the race lead. But another wreck on the back straightaway will bring out the yellow flag once again, Taylor.
Certainly is, and that's going to cause by a couple of drivers right here. Joe Agee, along with several other drivers making contact. That's going to be the 17 of Michael Rossi. And then, of course, Jason Kiefer involved in that incident. Several other drivers are working their way trying to avoid that. But a tough break for Kiefer, who just got back on the lead lap.
I think the wreck at the back of the pack may have headed off the wreck at the front of the pack because they were 3 wide for the lead and thinking really seriously about 4 wide for the lead. The skirmish broke up in the rear of the field, brought out the caution flag, and I think it might have saved the leaders from a little bit of a hard time.
I won't disagree, Dave. As this all started in the back of the field, Michael Rossi gets pinned into the outside wall on the back straightaway by Joe Agee, who was coming up, I think, trying to clear the 17 best as he could, get away from the 64 machine and take the air away from Drew Welker, but ended up driving straight into Rossi. Didn't really leave much room for anybody else to get around from that part of the field either. Kobe Moore, which sent sideways. Jason Keffer spun. Brett Baldock picked up damage in the 60, or rather the 4 machine, and everybody else snuck to the inside, but a tough break for some of the drivers in the very back of the field. We'll keep an eye on who comes down pit road, who decides to fix up their damage, who uses a fast repair, and who decides to stay out, potentially. Don't think we have any takers, though, this time, Taylor, as the field will come down pit road right around the halfway mark.
One driver so far has decided to stay out. That is the 99 of Raja Karuth, as well as Joshua Balicki and Gary Sexton, who will stay out onto the racetrack. So it looks like 3 drivers, make it 4 when you count Ron Capps, who will stay out on the racetrack, as Garrett Miller will get the lucky dog. He'll get his laps back.
So Miller will get 1 lap back on the field. Welker again trying to get his car fixed up, and I believe that it will be Raja Karuth in the 99 machine for Richmond Raceway eSports development. They, of course, had a huge week last week out in the NASCAR iRacing Pro Series, the qualifier to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Richmond Raceway played host to last week's race, and their own driver and teammate to Raja Karuth, Garrett Maines. I was about to mix up Maines and Smithley, but Garrett Maines, who himself is a Richmond area native, got the victory in what has been a very strong campaign for him, Taylor. A driver who looks like he may well be on his way to the 2021 Coke Series, especially with the run that he had at Richmond last week.
Certainly was. It was a dominant run, actually, for the entire Richmond Raceway Elliott Sadler eSports team, who finished 1st, 2nd, and 4th. So a strong run from them there that night, and of course a couple of other drivers looking forward. Of course, you can catch next round tomorrow night at Dover, the Monster Mile.
9 p.m. on twitch.tv/Podium eSports, the place to be for the 4th race of 6, the 2020 eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series. But as of now, time to bring you our iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually at Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. As Raja Karuth leads this field ahead of Josh Balicki, Gary Sexton in 3rd, albeit down a few faster pairs. Ron Capps with some damage, but in 4th. Garrett Smithley completes the top 5 after 32 laps. Chris Rice is 6th from College Racing. Brandon Brown from Richmond Raceway 7th. 8th, Stephen Wilson. Jeff Green currently holds the 9th place. And 10th, Taylor Burris is Matthew Stalkner.
Nick Sanchez sits in the 11th position, followed by DJ Cummings in 12th position. Anthony Alfredo sits in 13th, followed by Ryan Vargas in 14th. Max Kennan currently sits in the 15th position, followed by Ford Martin in 16th. 17th is Bobby Labonte, followed by Preston Pardis in 18th. 19th is Chris Wilner. Dylan Welch rounds out your top 20.
21st actually is where Wells is Roger Debo, 22nd. 23rd, Gabe Wood and Seth Eggert in 24th. 25th to Nick DeGroot, Michael Rossi 26th. The 27th spot belongs to Joe Agee. Kobe Moore is 28th. 29th, Mark Rubilas, and Brennan Madonia completes the top 30. Drew Welker, Stephen Ellis, Brett Baldeck, Jason Kepper, Garrett Miller. A full field rundown at the halfway point, and this concludes our iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser-scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world, and you can log on to iRacing today to get on track as they wreck right at the front of the field on the restart. Rajah Caruth goes sideways. Dylan Welch is nowhere to go. Everybody's spinning and crashing, and before we even get to turn one, a tremendous amount of torn-up sheet metal Taylor Perez.
Certainly was indeed. I'm going to have to look at one driver who caused that. That's going to have to be Chris Wright. He gets a good jump on that outside road, but unfortunately he makes contact with the 28 of Ron Capps and then sends it around, and then the chaos ensues. As we see on the replay, Gary Sexton, Rajah Caruth, and many more involved in this incident here.
Almost easier to describe who isn't in it than who is at this point. You're right. Chris Rice just tried to clear himself of the Ron Capps machine, came down across the racetrack, and Capps already had his foot in the door. My buddy Ron Capps, he'll race anything, anytime, anywhere. Of course, his exploits well known as a former world champion in the NHRA funny car ranks, has gone down and attempted to qualify for the Chili Bowl a few years ago. When he went to the Chili Bowl, he had very little or any dirt track experience. I tried to warn him off. I said, Capps, you can't go down there and race with those guys. They're professionals. They're animals. They'll eat you for lunch. Oh, no. He said, we'll be fine. It'll be awesome. It's going to be fun. Turn one, lap one of his heat race. He's 40 feet in the air, flying almost through the side of the building. Took him to the hospital. It was a big old mess. I don't think he's tried to run the Chili Bowl since.
I have a feeling maybe he might find his luck a little bit better in the virtual Chili Bowl, the Ascors Chili Bowl that'll come up just a few weeks from now. Hard to believe that we're not terribly far moved from the week of January 17th, but 19th through the 23rd. The Ascors Chili Bowl, the biggest Chili Bowl in iRacing, and maybe that might be a little bit more Ron Capps' speed. You figure Dylan Welch is almost certainly going to be involved in that, Taylor, but dirt racing from the virtual Tulsa Expo Center, which actually saved the real-life Chili Bowl last year when they couldn't quite get the configuration of the track right over in 1 and 2. The Chili Bowl asked iRacing for the scan data from the year that they went and got the data to build their virtual Chili Bowl, which I believe was 2017. And they took the data from iRacing, looked at it, compared it to where they were in real life and how the track was set up in the Chili Bowl that year, and managed to fix it, much to the driver's delight. Impressive moment of technology and 21st century problems being fixed there in the real world.
It certainly is, and that's one of the amazing things with iRacing and their laser scanning of these tracks. They are so detailed, especially now with how we are doing dirt racing here. I mean, they make sure they get every divot, every little bit of bumps that happen and transitions throughout a race run in the dirt racing world. And it's so critical to have those points in the racetrack to where you know how the car feels, to where you can make the needed adjustments. And it's just phenomenal that iRacing was able to help such a world-class racing event that happened that night and be able to help them get set up to make sure they provided great racing action for the people who were there watching and competing.
Crazy to think that in this time we can use technology to that extent and make the racing a little bit better for everybody. But it's happened at the Chili Bowl. It'll happen more times in the future, I'm fairly certain. As we'll take a moment to step aside, we'll go side by side one more time, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more coverage of the Salute to Service 130 from Michigan International Speedway on Podium eSports.
For years, people had to get professional tools off of a truck.
That's me.
But we know that tool trucks only come around maybe once a week.
You want to go check out what's in the van?
Now Dave knows that his NAPA Auto Parts store delivers parts multiple times a day to his shop, and they carry the professional line of Carlyle tools. Carlyle offers quality tools with a lifetime warranty on its hand tools and a significant savings over mobile tool trucks. And you can forget about the weekly payments and expensive finance charges.
Just pay me, every week for the rest of your life.
Carlyle Tools, as close as your local NAPA Auto Parts store.
Back to the salute to service 130 at Michigan International Speedway here on Podium eSports. Lights are off the pace car. Green flag will come back out on lap 38. And it's Josh Bilicki and Brandon Brown who are up in front. And Ron Capps, the 2016 champion of footy cars in the NHRA, up to third, but with damage, but holding on to his fast repairs, clearly ascribing to the Dave Moody school of thought. We heard Dave talk about that a little bit earlier, and we'll see how that comes to pass with the 28 machine. But pace car is off down on pit road. Bilicki will lead us back to green, and who will spin the tires this time? It's been a common thread throughout these restarts, but that restart looked a little bit cleaner than some of the ones we've had leading up to this. And so now Anthony Alfredo will be the first one to make a move to the inside of Ron Capps, and then they both go down, and we'll see where they're rejoined, not where they restarted. Plenty of track position loss for Alfredo in particular. Capps is able to maintain his spot at the top 5, and Alfredo goes all the way back to the edge of the top 20, Taylor.
Yeah, Alfredo tried to dive to the inside, try to get around Ron Capps, with Capps having that damage, but unfortunately was not able to clear him as Capps put him around, and both of them continue on their way, but both of them not where they were originally. Ron Capps up to 7th now, and of course Anthony Alfredo back in 20th. So a tough break for them. They got to get themselves gathered back up and continue on their way as we keep an eye on one driver who I'm watching, the 10 of DJ Cummings. Remember earlier, he got caught up in one of the early incidents. He's now running inside the top 6, so a great job and recovery run for him as they come off of turn number 2. It is still going to be Nick Sanchez holding on to the race lead.
He's got some company, though. Nick Sanchez down on the bottom of the racetrack, trying to get the run on the outside on Josh Bilicki. Bilicki by a nose, then it's Sanchez by a nose. Ryan Vargas right there in the catbird seat in the 26 car, just trying to figure out which lane's going to get the advantage. He may go to the bottom and take both of them on the inside.
He thought about it, then thought better of it. Then he's just going to weave a little bit to try and figure out which way Sanchez will or won't go. He'll sit behind him. Few cars spinning a little bit further back. No yellow flag yet as Sanchez, Vargas, Bilicki make a trade. And now how about Matthew Stallconnect running and making it 4 cars in a row?
Great little battle right here. Some contact happens a little further back between DJ Cummings and the 12 of Brandon Brown, but they're able to get themselves lined back up and continue on their way. Meanwhile, back up towards the front of the field, Nick Sanchez, Ryan Vargas going to go side by side off of turn number 4 with Josh Bilicki watching, waiting to take whichever line works the best. He's going to stay right tucked up behind Ryan Vargas as they go down the front straightaway. Vargas will lead that lap just by a hair.
Takes it down below the white line, almost all the way to the grass, does Ryan Vargas, trying to really shorten up the lap. He's got the inside line. He's got the lead. Sanchez back to the 2nd spot. Here's Josh Bilicki now to the inside. They get together off turn number 2.
No patience. No patience whatsoever. But then again, we only have about 20 laps to go and change as Bilicki tried to send it off down to the bottom in 3 and 4 and then gathered it back up underneath Vargas. Just Stallconnect tries to hold off Nick Sanchez, and I'm waiting for one of Max Kennan or Brandon Brown to make their runs. I figured Brandon and Max were going to pop up here at some point. They were in the mix late at Motegi, or at least Kennan was in the mix late at Motegi, and Brown has a pretty solid track record across the board in iRacing, especially with the 1987 cars, but no surprise to see him running up near the front as we start coming towards the close of this race.
Certainly is putting on a good run as he goes right up to the back bumper of Matt Stallconnect down the back straightaway. Going to give him a little bit of a push to keep Stallconnect in front of Max Kennan as they dive it down into turn 3. Stallconnect's one of those drivers who we've been talking about since the start of this season of when he will collect himself a win so far. He's come close a couple of times this season. Could we see him finally break through to get his first win of the season as they come across the line? Vargas holds strong with the race lead, but here comes Josh Bilicki with a head of steam as they dive it into turn 1.
Bilicki goes to the outside lane, has really no choice as Nick Sanchez breaks out the shovel. He's going to charge back to the bottom of the racetrack. Side by side now, Sanchez and the black 96 on the inside. Now they're going to look 3 wide for a moment. Thinking better of it is Stallconnect. That's one of the better decisions we've seen so far tonight.
Well, it also helped that Nick Sanchez threw a big block on the 41. He went about 3 lanes out and dropped the elevator as Brandon Brown hits the fence over in turn 4, just behind all the action here. No yellow flag yet, though, from race control. And a tough break for Brandon Brown, who had been showing some speed in the laps leading up to that incident, but now he will need a yellow flag to get back into it as Sanchez tries to clear Bilicki for the race lead once more.
Great job for Sanchez. He will complete that pass and now be your new race leader. But here comes Bilicki. Vargas, as we see, Sanchez throws the block on Vargas as they go down the back straightaway. Bilicki trying to work that outside groove, but can't quite get to that outside quarter panel of Nick Sanchez as they dive into turn 1. Vargas dives to the bottom of the racetrack, side by side for second as Bilicki can't seem to get that run he needs off turn 4.
Sanchez got tight about midway between turns 3 and 4, drifted up the banking, opened the door down low to Ryan Vargas, but Vargas couldn't get there in time. Sanchez back to the bottom now, holding on to the lead. Bilicki all by himself in that outside lane.
What I love about this racing is that we're already seeing some of these drivers start to respond as 2 cars go around backwards, and now they'll start going everywhere down the max straightaway, and we will get the yellow flag. Couldn't stop at that time. About 7 or 8 machines were sideways coming out of 2 on the max straightaway, and it just all became a very big pinball machine very quickly as we get the yellow flag on lap 45 of 65. So a yellow flag to begin this final 20-lap stint. But Chris Wilner into the side of the 9 machine that belongs to Roger Dupont, who just made contact with the 38 of Jeff Green and a whole host of others that we'll see on your replay momentarily, Tim.
Yeah, it started a little bit around there when Roger Diebold made contact with Stephen Wilson. Wilson then gets up to the 38 of Jeff Green, and then we see the rest of the chaos ensue. The 24 as well getting caught up in that incident. Several other drivers, Ford Martin involved, several other drivers just zooming through, hoping they don't get hit by anybody. But unfortunately for drivers such as Chris Wilner and several others, they're going to have to come down pit road and get that fast repair needed.
I think Chris Wilner's going to be using one of those fast repairs now. With 20 laps to go, that car torn up front and rear. Good time to get a trip onto pit road. That's too bad because they were banging behind him and he just got gathered up from behind, nowhere to go, and then everybody just eating each other's lunch as they all spin. Multi-car wreck, and it's still not over coming off turn 2.
Still, it just keeps going and going and going. It's like the Energizer Bunny in that sense, but that can happen here at Michigan in a few different places. And yes, Wilner will have the opportunity to use the fast repair as some cars come down pit road and some don't. But while they come down pit road, we'll take the moment to bring in both managing member of Podium eSports and, I guess officially, if we're going to be technical, digital content and broadcasting manager for iRacing. We'll see what he says. But Cisco Scaramuza now joins us, and for those who are unaware, every 13 weeks, iRacing releases updates to the service and what is known as a build across the sim racing community. And this happens to be what is known as a build week, the week in which new content is released. In Cisco, plenty of work that you all on the video team, Alex Horn, Drew Adamson and company have been doing over the last few days of iRacing. A lot that we've seen and a lot that race fans can expect when the new build of iRacing comes out on Wednesday.
Oh, absolutely, James. Good evening, everybody. Just been tuning in, watching some Monday Night Racing here. Of course, Grit on earlier as well, but it has been a crazy day here at Michigan. It looks like an old school ARCA race out there, or not ARCA, IROC race out there almost in a sense. Just the engine notes of these cars and the way they're drafting in this air. I remember we did this combination back during the lockdown over on Fox. We had some of our IROC-esque drivers taking part in that, and then Monday Night Racing taking the formula, and again, just another fantastic show. But as you said, James, yeah, we've talked about in the office, this may be one of the biggest builds in iRacing history, and that's coming off what I think was the last big giant build in iRacing history. It's been incredible, and everybody at the office and part of the iRacing team has been absolutely just working non-stop to try and get as much as we can into this December build, and there's just so many great things coming.
I think if I'm to pick favorites and I'm to pick highlights and stars of this build, the long-awaited arrival, the Grand Prix at Long Beach, the street circuit in Southern California finally arrives on iRacing in full-fledged form as part of this build. And then the IR01, which is a unique, brand new project for iRacing that comes out this week as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about the track and the car?
Well, the track, of course, Long Beach has been a part of iRacing as a tech track, a technical track where you only have the laser scan data as they come out of turn 2 here. That track's been around the service since 2015, and finally we had the opportunity, and due to circumstances, we're able to complete that track. So that was a huge project for us. A lot of months went into it, and that was something that was started even before the beginning of the year. So that tells you how long it's taken us to be able to put that together. The IR01, go watch the video. That's the best thing I can say. Alex Horn did a fantastic job putting all that together with some 3D work by Drew, but it's the future of sim racing right there. Just a fantastic car, a lot of awesome work that's gone into it. A couple quick highlights as they head through 3 and 4 here. Big Block Bonafide, Cedar Lake, as well as a couple other cars and tracks that we haven't much said, but I think the big thing that got announced today and everybody realized, the IR18 is going to be updated with tire compounds, and oh yes, how about some figure 8 with jumps in it? We got that coming too.
Jumpy trucks. Ryan Vargas is going to love that in particular. We'll talk a little bit more about it during the broadcast. Francisco, thanks so much for the time. We look forward to let you settle back in as we watch these final 20 laps of racing from Michigan. Nick Sanchez back to it with Vargas behind him and 3 wide for third already, Taylor.
They certainly are. Garrett Smithley wasting no time. He decided to go up through the middle of the third and fourth place driver to try and get over into the third place as they come off of turn number 2, though. Nick Sanchez, Ryan Vargas side by side. Stalknecht, Smithley as well. It is going to be 2 by 2, about 4 rows deep as they dive it down into turns 3 and 4 as Smithley tries to take a peek to the outside and take it 3 wide, but thinks better of it. 3 cars to the outside, 3 cars to the inside as the caution comes out once again.
Yellow flag here one more time. Let's see where it came out, Dave, but didn't even get the chance to break this up, although I think our culprit might be the 25 of Stephen Wilson. Looks like he went around in turn 3 to bring this yellow flag.
That's a shame. He had a really good run going in the early laps, led for a time. Let's see if we can see what happened to him as they make their way off and down the back straightaway. That's Ron Capps in the 28 right in front of Wilson. Brandon Madoni on the inside lane, and they just got tangled up. Tried to make that left-hand move to dive down the banking and make the low-line charge, and there just wasn't room to get it done.
One of the smaller incidents, though, we've had over the course of this race. Nobody coming down pit road yet, save for maybe about the top 9 or 10 who we need to watch because they did not come down under the yellow flag. Sanchez, Vargas, Smithley, Stalknecht, Balicki, Kennan, Cummings, Wood, Keffer, and Welch. Everybody in the top 10 stayed out the last time by. The question is whether or not they come down this time by for fresh rubber. And yes, we may have sent him out, but we'll bring him back in just as easily, just because I know Cisco says, go watch the video on the IR01. And for those who are watching on Twitch, you can take a look at the chat for a link to the video that Cisco is referring to. But the IR01 is unlike any car that iRacing has ever put in sim. Because with most cars, you either get the computer design data or you take the laser scanners that are accurate to the millimeter and find ways to bring the cars in. But this was a unique project between iRacing and Dallara, and they built a car specifically for the sim. Now, technically speaking, we don't think there are any cars or IR01 sitting around that have been built in real life, but the ability to do that is there. So yes, the IR01 to some degree is a fictional car, but it's also grounded in realism as well.
Yeah, it is, James, and you know, this does harken back, and I was talking, and Bo Albert had an interesting perspective on the car. It's been a little bit of a controversial car, actually, because of how it was built, but our great partners at Dallara, who, if you remember, brought us the IR18 back before it was released in real life as well. But I mean, this is a car that, should someone put the money up, the engine up, this is a car you could absolutely build in real life and take to the racetrack and race. So we just took the opportunity, and our team, obviously with the challenges of the lockdown and everything going on with that, they're looking for, you know, more opportunities and more opportunities to kind of grow parts of our service that we may not necessarily have the capability to do so. So Steve and them got together. They went to Dallara and said, hey, we want to make just the ultimate circuit racing open wheel car that we can. So they got together with Dallara, and over, very hushed discussions. I mean, ultimately, we didn't really find out about this over at the office until about a month out. And even we were kind of, a little bit surprised by it, but just the amount of work that's gone into it, the development, it's one of those cars where we're probably not going to see a car like it ever again, a V10 open cockpit car with no electronics on it whatsoever. So it's a bit of a halo, and that's what makes it really special.
I think the maybe best comparison might be to some of the Formula One cars of the late 1990s and early 2000s that didn't have too many electronic assistance, but so much power, so much downforce still there, still available for you. It is, in that sense, I think, a driver's car, one where if you know how to manage throttle and brake and can roll in and roll out the same way Shuby did, you will find speed in the IRL1 very quickly.
You will, and I've had the fortunate ability to actually drive the car a little bit. I was on vacation last week, but did manage to get a couple runs in. I went to Zolder because I just finished up racing with Jimmy Broadbent's group there, and I'm not going to say what the lap time I put down was, but I looked at the time after barely practicing the car and went, holy cow. So we're not talking completely fantasy numbers, but it could give that McLaren MP430 a run for its money, I'll tell you what.
Should be fun. Also, speaking of things that are going to come out in iRacing before real life, how about that BMW M4 that's going to be new for next year in the real life racing world that will make its debut in iRacing as part of this build?
Yeah, absolutely. The BMW M4 GT3, which was announced over the weekend during the finale of the BMW 120 event. BMW has been a huge partner for us this year with the BMW 120 series that they've put together with us. Obviously, they helped us during IMSA. So we had all that, and that's a car that's not going to race until 2022. So that's a really special car for us. But before I go, I did want to jump up to Dave really quickly and just say, hey, Dave, we also got some dirt content in this, the Super Dirt Car Series Big Block Modified and the 358 Modified also coming onto the service, as well as Cedar Lake Speedway. And those cars especially have a huge following out in the Northeast, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. That's my neck of the woods up there. And there are a lot of folks in upstate, central, southern New York that are absolutely going to love that and will be all over it the minute they can get their hands on it. A lot of fun. Can't wait to see it.
I'll tell you what, James, there's probably going to be, I bet you, at least 10 hosted sessions the day of the build at Weed Sport with the Big Block Modified. I guarantee you that.
Somewhere Max McLaughlin is smiling. And speaking of other cars in the Northeast, I think people should, I guess, officially stay tuned, because we might see one more that'll come before tomorrow, perhaps. Wink, wink. If you've seen a few videos, you'll know what I mean.
Yeah, we'll just, we'll have to see what happens, James.
We'll see if people are thirsty for a few new tracks as we get set to go back Green Flag Racing. Cisco, thanks for the time.
No, thanks for having me, guys. Good luck the rest of the way.
Cisco Scaramuza from iRacing to tell you all about what you're going to see in the new build this week as we go back to Green Flag Racing in this Salute to Service 130 at Michigan, closing in on the final 10 laps. And Ryan Vargas with a good run to the outside, who jumps ahead of Nick Sanchez for the race lead.
A great jump, in fact, for Ryan Vargas as he pulls it out to about 2 car lengths as they come off of turn number 2. Meanwhile, the battle for third position between Garrett Smithley, Matt Stallconnect, and Max Kennan, as well as they make a little bit of contact there down the back straightaway, able to keep it together and continue on going as Nick Sanchez will throw the block on Garrett Smithley to hold on for second. But as they come out for turn 4, Dave, it is still a tight battle as we see Smithley holding strong in that outside lane.
Smithley trying to make it happen up high. I'm looking a little further back. A couple of guys out of the last chance qualifier. Gabriel Wood in the black number 50 and Dylan Welch in the green and white number 14 out of the last chance race, fighting their way into the top 10 right now as we've got problems again up toward the front of the pack.
It was Ryan Vargas who went around in turn 2, and the yellow flag will come out once again for the 26 machine, who did finally go around. He got some help in the middle of all that, but trouble for Ryan Vargas and what I think will be a disappointing end to his bid to win this race. He had been so strong throughout a good chunk of it, but just a slight amount of contact in 1 and 2 with Garrett Smithley, Taylor, that sends the 26 car up into the fence.
Heartbreak indeed for Ryan Vargas, who was a strong contender all night tonight. And unfortunately, with that contact with Garrett Smithley, that will send him to the back of the pack. He will probably come down pit road, get a fast repair, and continue on his way. But with only less than 10 laps to go when we go back green flag racing, he's got a lot of work to do.
And now this is where you use the fast repairs, Dave. I think you're not holding back at this stage.
Oh, yeah, you're burning them up now. If you've got any left, there's no reason to have any left. We're down to 10 laps to go, probably 9 or even 8 by the time we get back under the green flag. So, yeah, get those fenders straightened out, get everything tuned up again, and make the final run toward the checkered flag in this one.
And here's the terrifying thing. Yes, you might want to burn it up to some degree, but remember that we have green-white checkers available for these drivers if need be. I have a hunch, Taylor, that just like last week, had the same hunch we were going to use up a few of them. I think we're probably going to have a few green-white checkers tonight, too.
Probably safe to say that, so these drivers might need to make sure they have enough fuel to get to the end, especially those who are inside the top 10. I think it's safe to say they should be okay, but if we end up having to go into that second or third green-white checkered attempt, might need to keep an eye on their fuel levels when we get closer to the end.
We'll see where they sit on tires, where they sit on fuel, if people decide to come down and get their cars fixed up. Few takers on pit road in the back of the field, but while the field continues to circle Michigan International Speedway under the yellow flag, we'll remind you of some of the events coming up in the world of iRacing and Podium eSports over the course of the next week. And our action continues tomorrow night, the 4th round of 6, the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series, featuring the cars of the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Dover International Speedway tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Podium eSports, is some of the best drivers challenging for Nick Ottinger's throne in next year's eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series will take to the Monster Mile to try and claim their spot and continue the road towards the 2021 Coke Series campaign. Then, Saturday, a special event. It's the eSports Drifting Association on the road course, the infield section at Daytona International Speedway. If you've not seen drift racing either in real life or virtually, tune in to twitch.tv/Podium eSports, 1 p.m. Eastern, Saturday afternoon, coming your way, December 12th. Our very own Ian Plass and Keenan Kusin, who I've seen hanging out in chat on Twitch, I know are incredibly excited. And you want to hear two people that know how to call a drift event. Those two will get you excited for things that you might not necessarily understand, but you'll get it by the end of the day. And if you don't get hyped, then we can't help. Just let them sort of lead you. Before we come back with more racing on Monday night next week, it's the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge from Lime Rock Park. 7 weeks, 7 different cars. You can only use the same car, or only use each car one time, rather. So I would presume a lot of Indy cars and Riley prototypes for a bit of a throwback feel. That'll come your way next Monday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the main Podium eSports Twitch channel. And then we are back with round 5 of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring, featuring the street stock at the old version of Phoenix International Speedway, the one with the flat dog leg and the grass out on the back straightaway and the old start finish line. That Phoenix is where we're headed next Monday night, December 14th, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Podium eSports Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages. All the places you need to be. As Nick Sanchez will lead us to the green on lap 59 of 65. If you're anybody in this top 5, Dave Moody, do you have a general strategy play? Are you going for it now, or are you waiting for someone ahead of you to find a hole for you, or maybe make a mistake that opens up the door for you to take advantage and leap potentially to the front?
James, I know I've been playing the conservative card almost from the drop of the green flag tonight, but we've still got 8 laps to go in regulation. I think you're exactly right. The way this race has gone, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see 1 or 2 or maybe even the maximum of 3 green-white checker attempts before it's all over. I still think some time is left. I don't think that 4 wide on this restart is necessarily the way to go.
Might not be the way to go, but it might be the way things actually play out. We'll see. And wheel spin has been an issue too, something we have to note. Seems like it's not an issue on this particular occasion as Nick Sanchez brings us back to green, but immediately there goes Stallconnect to the inside of Max, or Cummings rather, to the inside of his teammates. So the NASCAR teammates going side by side, and 3 wide as they push poor Max Kennan up top, and 3 wide behind between Smithley and Welch and Josh Balicki for position as well.
They get a little bit organized as we see Stallconnect going up to second place. Kennan and Cummings will now go side by side. We're almost going to take it 4 wide before we dive it into turns 3 and 4, but they are able to back up. Balicki gets a little bit of a touch from Dylan Welch as he will drop back, as we see Stallconnect get punted out of the way to drop back outside the top 5 as they come off of turn 4. Nick Sanchez now has a 3/10 of advantage lead as they come across the line.
Sanchez loving what he sees right now. That's about the biggest lead anybody has enjoyed in this race tonight. It's not over yet, though. He's got a big pack of cars behind him trying to run him down. Garrett Smithley, Preston Pardis is up in the running, DJ Cummings, and Dylan Welch out of the last chance qualifier.
Dylan Welch with one of the runs of the night when this all shakes out, if he can hang on to this spot, though he wants a little bit more. And we know that Dylan, especially with his midget experience, will have no fear, even if it means maybe hip checking somebody in the corner. He'll go through the middle, he'll make it work, and he will gain spots. The question is, can he gain enough as Garrett Smithley and P-Money Preston Pardis swap lanes in the front straightaway?
Look at Preston Pardis. He was out towards the back half of the field for most of the race. Here he is now battling for the race lead as they come through turns 1 and 2. A little bit of contact between Smithley and Sanchez. Will Pardis be able to capitalize on that? He will, as he gets to the inside of Sanchez, who throws the big block down the back straightaway underneath the white line. All 3 of them below the white line as they make contact. Sanchez goes almost into the grass as they dive it into turn 3, able to regain control of their race cars as here comes Dylan Welch.
As Ken Squire used to say, Grandma, put your teeth in your pocketbook because it's about to get crazy. 3 wide for the lead. You see for the in-car of Dylan Welch, he's got to run, trying to make it a 4-man dance, a 5-man dance for the number 1 spot. 4 laps to go. This is anybody's ball game.
More hit checking a little bit further back this time. Welch goes sideways. Stallconnect throws the side panel to the number 14 machine as P-Money now in front. Preston Pardis to the lead and 3 wide potentially for second, but a big wreck on the back straightaway. Brandon Brown was the first one I saw sideways, and we, I believe, will have our first green-white checker attempt as a result. But Brown's number 12 machine all torn up. Looks like he just either came up or got sent up into somebody. I believe sent is going to be the correct answer here. But yeah, just got moved by Jeff Green in the 38. And around goes the 12 machine on the backstretch, Taylor.
Yeah, a tough break for Brandon Brown. He has been beaten and battered all night long. Of course, that help from Jeff Green caused him to get involved in this incident here as we are under caution once again. But I can't believe the battle for the race lead that we just saw between Pardis, Sanchez, and Garrett Smithley. I mean, those drivers, if we were at Daytona, they would have all been in trouble because they just went below that white line, almost towards the grass as they were coming into turns 3 and 4. So a great battle for the top 3, and I can only imagine what's going to happen when we get ready for this first attempt of a green-white checkered.
Preston Pardis has got a relatively clean race car. No dents, no dings, hasn't folded, spindled, or mutilated at any point really during this race. He's got a really good race car right now. Nick Sanchez, though, has just been steady from the start of this. I don't know that he's been outside the top 5 except during pit stops at any run during this race. He also has got a pretty pristine race car right now. So everybody has saved those fast repairs for the end when they needed them. The guys at the front of the pack have got good race cars, good track position. It's just a matter of who makes the right move at the right time now.
Sanchez, who, as we mentioned, racing with Max Siegel and Rev Racing, driver development, all sorts of talent, I think, in that man who usually is behind the wheel of the 98 and the 96 for tonight's race, though. But ran the full ARC Menards season in 2020, finished 3rd in points, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, and not necessarily the most outspoken of drivers. But Taylor, as you watch him get behind the wheel, you can tell there's talent, and a little bit more so than usual in the man behind the wheel of the 96.
He certainly is. Sort of like a fire lit underneath him as Nick Sanchez. He's definitely wanting to prove he has what it takes to kind of be one of the future stars of NASCAR in the future. Nick Sanchez definitely showing that here tonight as he's going toe-to-toe with some of the veterans of NASCAR as they work their way through here. And I think Nick Sanchez, given the opportunity, could make it excellently well through the ARCA Menards and possibly one day up into the Cup Series.
I think you look at that front four, Dave, and I think it's part of the beauty of Monday Night Racing. Yes, you have the great car and track combos, but where else are you going to see Preston Pardus, Nick Sanchez, Garrett Smithley, and Matthew Stallconnect in their 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then throw Dylan Welch in the top 5? I can't think of too many real-life series where you'd see all 5 of those drivers in the same field, on the same running order, in the same spreadsheet anywhere.
I can't imagine a scenario where you would, let's put it that way. But that's the wonderful thing about this kind of racing. It brings people together virtually from all over the country, all over the world, puts them in kinds of race cars that they've never driven in real life, on racetracks that they've never driven in real life, and yet here they are from all these different walks of life, all these different racing series, all battling for the win here at Virtual Michigan, and it's going to be crazy now. I mean, the gloves are off with it'll be 2 laps to go here as they come to the line next time. If you think it's been crazy up till now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Hip checking, car spinning. It's going to look real, though I can't confirm for 3T3 Arnell's 3R0. I think I had that right in Twitch chat. This is not real. This is all virtual. This is all being run within the iRacing.com motorsports simulation. Log on to iRacing.com to find out more information about the program that we use for all these race broadcasts. And even though, yes, the racing is virtual in the actual build sense, the competition level and the driving dynamics and the physics are all very true, accurate to real life, and that's why even though this is all happening on a bunch of computers, it all feels very real in a way that you would not necessarily expect. But then again, you trace the lineage of iRacing back to the very beginnings of sim racing in the 1990s, as iRacing can. You figure 25 years of building up code and give you a pretty solid platform to work with, as Preston Pardus has a very solid lead to work with on this restart. First attempt at a green-white checker tonight. We are going to clear our regularly scheduled distance of 65 laps as we cross the line, so maybe to 67 unless we get a yellow flag. Pardus to the gas pedal with 2 laps to go, and it will be wheel to wheel as Garrett Smithley tries to make a move, and another hip check there. That was Dylan Welch that went sideways, and Stallconnect and Cummings, and everybody goes sideways, and the first yellow flag out Taylor Burst before we even hit turn 1. 2 more attempts remaining at a green-white checker finish now.
Stall started when Jeff Green and Dylan Welch get together, and then a little bit later on as Green was able to save it, DJ Cummings, Max Kennan make contact, and then allowing Jeff Green to get involved as a couple of other cars will get stacked up into that incident. But we are once again under caution. Time for round 2 of our green-white checkered attempts.
So, we will see how this pans out. And at this stage, just looking at the leaderboard, Dave, if you might be a little bit further back in this field, is there a spot in the standings where you genuinely think about maybe trying to come down to get tires, to get some sort of advantage on the drivers in front of you, especially bearing in mind that some of these drivers at the front are on 35, 36, could be close to 40-lap-old tires by the time this race concludes?
I think you've got to play the cards that you've got in your hand at this point. If you go to pit road now, you're going to come out, I don't know, 15th, 18th, 20th, 22nd, depending on what anybody else does out there. I just don't think there's time enough on a 2-mile racetrack in a green-white checker flag scenario to pass the number of cars that you need. Certainly not to get back to the lead, to get up to the lead, but even to get back to where you were when you came in off the racetrack. I think at this point, you've got what you've got, and you've just got to make the most of it with the tires that you've got on that race car right now.
So every driver out there for himself, maybe, Taylor Burris? Or do you think we might see some of these drivers near the front try and work together? There's the obvious connection that would have been there between DJ Cummings and Matthew Stallconnect, but it was the 10 car that went around on that last yellow, and I think that really hurt Stallconnect because those two are effectively teammates. They work out of the same office in the center of Charlotte, North Carolina, and know each other very well, have worked together very well over the course of the season so far. Any other partnerships like that that you think might be there on this restart?
Well, looking at the top 7 right now, that's going to be difficult to call because pretty much everybody's been racing each other very hard. I know drivers such as Nick Sanchez, Garrett Smithley. I don't think those two will be working together because those two have been battling since the drop of the green flag. So it's pretty much out there, every man for himself. But we could see a couple of drivers towards the back half of the field try and come up with a plan to work together to get it up towards the top 5. But it's just too soon to tell. We have to wait and see what will happen once we take the green flag. You may have a plan set up in motion, but once that green flag drops, you might have to call it audible to get ready for a different change of plans because possibly your teammate that you're wanting to work with drops back, has a tire spin, gets caught up in an incident. You have to be prepared for anything and be prepared to call that audible to either find another dancing partner or take care of yourself and work your way through the field as best you can.
I like the looks of Preston Pardus right now. He's number 1 in track position, no doubt about that. He's got 18 laps on this set of tires. That's a good 15 laps fewer than Nick Sanchez right now, a good 11 laps fewer than Garrett Smithley. So he's got all the cards in his hand right now. He's got a clean race car, a relatively fresh set of tires, and he's number 1 for the restart.
Good place to be if you are the number 90 machine, who, as Taylor mentioned, is now a 2-time Spec Miata champion. He won the SCCA Road-Offs at Road America in October in pretty convincing fashion and has some skill behind the wheel of the very teeny 4-wheel roadster, which, to be fair, if there's a car that I would love to see in Monday Night Racing at some point down the line, that at one of the shorter road courses, Taylor Burris, would be, I think, a tremendous combo. One that you would love, and if there's anybody that would be well suited to take advantage of it, Preston Pardus would absolutely be the person.
It certainly would. In fact, it would be a good warm-up for him to get things ready for when the SCCA Hoosier Super Tour Series kicks off next month in January at Sebring International Raceway. So could be a future scheduled track for and car combination that we could see, and we know Preston Pardus definitely knows his way around that track as well as win a Spec Miata. So of course it's going to be a great race for him later on this next year to see him do that. Of course, he's got to see if he can do well here tonight and take home his first career Monday Night Racing event here as he gets ready to take the green flag momentarily.
So Pardus, Sanchez, Smithley, Alfredo, Stallconnect, your top 5. We have one more green-white checker in the pocket if we need it. It was called pretty early last time by. It didn't actually end up becoming a wreck, so we'll see if race control maybe holds the yellow a little bit tighter this time by as we go back to green flag racing and contact at the very front. There was wheel spin somewhere in the middle of it all, and the yellow flag comes out again. And I saw Brandon Brown coming down to the inside at the very end of all this. Not totally certain whether or not there was anything going on between the 12 machine, but the yellow flag came out before we even got going, Dave. Not totally certain for what reason, but what we do know for certain is that the next green white checker attempt will be the last one.
One way or another, we're going to get this one finished, and it's too bad because a good run in the reasonably early going for Brandon Brown has just turned into a demolition derby type of finish. You can see there's not much left of the body panels on that machine, and I believe he's burned up both of his fast repairs already as well. So it's just the second half of this race has not gone his way for sure after a pretty solid start.
Looking at timing and scoring right now, Brandon Brown's actually scored 2 laps down, and I noticed race control might have accidentally given him a wave around during the time that they took the green flag. So I guess miscommunication possibly?
That would make sense. That would definitely make sense. You get 2 laps instead of the 1 if you get a wave around here in Monday Night Racing. So that may well have been Brandon's attempt to get back on the lead lap as everybody else was racing for the win. And yes, looks like it probably would be some sort of miscommunication between Josh Mendoza up at the tower and Brandon Brown. So nobody with wrecked race cars. Nobody with any sort of damage, I think, out of that, or at least nothing major. But for the rest of the field, the penalty for all of that, Dave, is that we lose that second green, white checker. And now this is it. If you do wreck here, it is over no matter what.
It's been a crazy night, to say the least. More caution flags than you can almost count here. But as we get down to it, a couple of guys that have been in contention all night long in Garrett Smithley, Nick Sanchez in the top 5, Preston Pardus, Anthony Alfredo, Stephen Wilson, who have had their own runs at the front of the pack earlier on and had to fall back for one reason or another, have made their way back up into contention here. It's going to be really interesting to see who's got the right play of the cards here in the final couple of laps.
Maybe the most intriguing points that I can see of our top 10 right now, after all the incidents that we've had, there are only 2 drivers that started outside of the top 10 that are currently running inside the top 10. One of them, who's made plenty of charges tonight, I feel like he's passed the field 2 times over, is the 2000 Xfinity Series champion, Jeff Green. The other Taylor Burris, our leader, the number 90, Preston Pardus. He started 16th.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these 2 drivers are able to pull something out of their hats in order to try and get out a good finish. Of course, for Preston, it's a chance for him to win tonight here at Michigan in these super late models. And for Jeff Green, maybe a shot to get closer to the top 5, maybe take home the checkered flag. But he's going to have a little bit of work to do. And then, of course, we still have some of the dominant drivers that have been here all night. Garrett Smithley, Nick Sanchez starting 2nd and 5th position. Anthony Alfredo is going to be starting in that 3rd position. He's been a contender inside the top 10 for most of the race. And Stephen Wilson, he's had an up and down night. Had a strong run early on in the race, led for a little bit, got caught up in the middle of the track with some incidents here in the middle of the race. And now he's back up inside the top 5 for a chance to take home the checkered flag here. He's going to be one to watch once the green flag drops.
Although it might be a little bit early to start talking the point standings, another point I think worth making is we get the one to go before our final restart of the night. Some of these drivers near the front could use a good point tonight. Jeff Green came into tonight outside of the top 20. He could definitely use the top 10 finish. Preston Pardus entered this evening 4 points outside of the playoff cutoff in 13th. He was the first man out of the playoffs coming into this evening and would win his way in to the playoffs if this holds. But if, as you said before we went on air, Dave Mooney, is a very, very powerful world.
Yeah, it's 2 little letters that change everything in the world. 2 different ways of looking at this if you're Preston Pardus. Obviously, the win and you're in scenario, if he can go to victory lane here tonight. But on the other side of the coin, he doesn't want to do anything crazy and turn a good, solid top 5 finish into a disaster on this final restart that could take him well outside the playoff standings. So right now, maybe a chance to tippy-toe his way to a top 5, or maybe a chance to just throw caution to the wind and try and win this thing.
How aggressive are you on this restart if you are any other drivers in the top 5, given that they are mostly near the top of the point standings outside of Smithley and Stephen Wilson? But we take off. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get a clean start here, and maybe, just maybe, we'll see a wild finish to the end, which I think is already coming to bear, coming to fruit. Pardus and Garrett Smithley already bouncing off of one another before they get to turn 1, Taylor.
They certainly are. Here comes Anthony Alfredo with a head of steam. He's going to get tucked up behind Preston Pardus. Now he's looked to the inside, going to take it 3 wide nose, thinks better of it, decides to stay behind the 90 of Preston Pardus as Garrett Smithley now will take the race lead as they dive it into turn 3.
Smithley running the outside, tried to put the squeeze on Pardus. Pardus shoehorns his way to the inside. They nearly touch in turns 3 and 4. Now they do touch in turns 3 and 4. Crossover by Alfredo. He'll go 3 wide to the bottom.
Alfredo made the move too early, coming out of 2 the last time by, and as they come to the white flag, Alfredo timed it perfectly out of 4 to get underneath the 90 and the 51 to potentially get the race lead. He bounces off the 90 on the inside. Here comes Smithley to the inside out of 2 for the last time.
Here they go down the back straightaway for the final time. Preston Pardus with a head of steam, a couple of car lengths down as they dive it into turn 3 for the final time.
3 wide for that number 2 position, and that's exactly what Preston Pardus wants to see, because they cannot get organized to make a run at him for the lead. They're tangling in the back of the pack. Here they come off 4, down to the stripe, checkered flag. Preston Pardus is going to take the victory. He wins it by just a car length as he fends off a 3-wide drag race per second on the final lap here at Michigan.
And Dave absolutely nailed it. I think between that trio that finished second, third, and fourth, if one of them had been able to separate, I think they could have gotten the run on the 90 car, but they all got busy fighting each other, Taylor, and it was everything Pardus needed to see on the last lap. Once they were 3 wide, there was nothing any of them could do about chasing down the 90 car, and Pardus goes from outside of the playoffs starting the evening to in, locked in with a victory at the end of it.
Preston Pardus grinning from ear to ear once he got cleared off of turn number 2 and basically just held on to take home the win and guarantees him a spot here in the playoffs later on this season. Preston Pardus, definitely a great run for him tonight. And what a recovery. Started 16th and worked all the way up to win the race. What a drive indeed.
On a night where there weren't too many drivers that made moves up through the field. It was a bit of an anomaly, at least compared to the season so far. We've seen a lot of fluid grids in the opening 3 races. This was one where if you qualify deep in the field, you usually were stuck back there for most of the night. Very few drivers made big-time charges. Preston Pardus didn't have the hardest charge of the race, but got enough to get the victory at the end of the day. That's what matters. Preston Pardus, your winner tonight, as we run through the full field rundown and tell you where your favorite driver finished. Pardus gets the victory, his first of the season, over Anthony Alfredo. Nick Sanchez brought it home third, a solid season 2 debut for the 96 car. Garrett Smithley was fourth at the end of the night. Fifth went to the 41 of Matthew Stonkenike. Max Kennan in the 21 car was sixth. Seventh went to the 28 receipt of Ron Capps, who I believe does get the hard charger award for the evening. 23 spots he jumped up after starting 30th, the last car in on time. DJ Cummings recovered from a spin near the end of this race to finish in the 8th spot. 9th, our defending champion Nick DeGroot with another strong top 10 run and what admittedly is not one of his stronger combos in Monday Night Racing. And Ford Martin, too, will maintain his place in the playoff picture with a top 10 finish, Taylor.
Covey Moore will come home in 11th, followed by Brendan Madonia in 12th. Seth Eggert will come home in 13th, followed by Gabriel Wood, who got his way in from the last chance qualifier, started 33rd. He'll come home in 14th. Steve Affont will come home in 15th, followed by Dylan Welch in 16th. Bobby Labonte, the 2000 NASCAR Cup Series champion, finishes in 17th, followed by Ryan Vargas 18th. 19th goes to Chris Wilner from MRN, and Jason Kiefer will round out your top 20.
21st was Drew Welker in the 64 car. Stephen Ellis from the Hockey News out of Toronto, Canada was 22nd. 23rd went to photographer Mark Rabelas. Jeff Green wrecked at the very end of the race, coming out of turn 4 and finished 24th. 25th went to Brandon Brown, a tough debut for the man from Richmond Raceway. Brett Baldack's run of bad luck continues. He was 26th. The last car in the lead, lap 27, was Roger Diebold. Garrett Miller was 1 lap down in 28th. Josh Pilecki and Stephen Wilson completed the top 30, and then it was Michael Rossi, Chris Rice, Joe Agee, Raja Caruth, and Gary Sexton who completed this 35-car field in tonight's Salute to Service 130 at Michigan International Speedway. And from the final rundown, we turn it over to Dave Moody of the Motor Racing Network, who is with tonight's winner, P-Money, in the number 90 car, Preston Pardus.
Preston, congratulations. Great win tonight. Coming down the back straightaway to get the white flag, you look in the rearview mirror and you see him 3 wide for second. Was that Christmas come early for you? It seemed like that was the difference late.
Yeah, no, exactly, Dave. I think I didn't think it was going to be that way. When we came to the white flag, they were on me pretty tight, and luckily they drove into one really deep, and it gave a big enough gap there that I didn't think that was going to happen.
What was going through your head on that final restart? Obviously, a win locks you into the playoffs, but a good steady top 5 would probably have put you into the playoff rankings as well. We were talking right before the green flag flew that the last thing you needed to do was get into a last lap tangle and turn a top 5 finish into about a 25th place finish.
No, exactly. Going into it, each green-white checkered, the guys that were on newer tires were getting closer to me too, so I kept that in mind. But Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of take it easy. I mean, I didn't want to get dumped there and lose a good points finish, like you said, but it's nice when you get a playoffs berth like that too by winning.
And you ran. Those are the best words in motorsports right now. Congratulations. Great job tonight. Congratulations on the win.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for the broadcast tonight.
Preston Pardish P1 this evening. We turn for the man who finished in P1 to our runner-up this evening, Anthony Alfredo, who now joins us up in the booth. And Anthony, first and foremost, for those who didn't get the chance to see your Twitter earlier today, you are not in your main super high-powered SimSeats rig. You're running in an office chair off an L-shaped desk with two relatively small monitors, a G920 wheel. It's not the most high-tech of setups, but as Ty Majeski has shown us, you don't necessarily need the most high-tech of setups to get it done. So how'd you end up in the spot to begin with?
Well, which spot? How we ended the race, or how I ended up at the simulator?
the sim first. We'll talk about the race too, but the sim first.
Yeah, well, both are good stories. That's why I wanted clarification there to tell the viewers. But I guess first off, I was able to come home for the holidays to spend time with my family, which is always been, number one of importance to me. And to have a year like we did, I haven't been able to see them very often with racing and not being able to travel too much and not have them at the racetrack either. So it's been great being home. However, I am away from my SimSeats driving simulator, as you mentioned, and the SimSeats rig is by far the most ergonomically accurate, and it feels just like I'm in the real life race car. And you can imagine that competing on that in iRacing for the last 2 years and getting on, going back to racing on a desk with kind of baseline equipment like I started iRacing, probably 3+ years ago, or it's been about 3 years since I've been on a setup like this. So I was spoiled with my SimSeats rig, and definitely it's been taking some getting used to. I didn't get as much practice in as I had hoped, but fortunately it didn't seem to affect me too much because we did come home P2. So in the first 4 races of the year, I missed the first one, but the last 3 I finished second, third, and second. And I'm really bummed because I wanted to get the win, but to be honest, I definitely didn't expect running this well at this setup. So I do have to thank SimSeats though, because even though I'm not in my rig, they were kind enough to loan me this G920 Logitech wheel and pedal set so I could race tonight, and I'm sure glad they were able to make that happen for me so I could compete in my whitetail smokeless super late model here. Proud to give them another podium finish as well. It's been a great time running this league, and it's another solid night for us.
Take us through those last few laps. I said on the broadcast, you tried to make the first move of the restart, coming on the back straightaway with 2 to go. Came a little bit too early, nailed it out of 4, and then the last lap, did Smithley, I guess, just throw you off in the end?
Yeah, it's typical racing, right? Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I just had such a big run off 4 coming to the white, and I think I had to take that opportunity. I'm not disappointed with that move, but 3 wide to the bottom, you mentioned earlier, I'm playing on a single 20-inch monitor, and I'm used to my triple 32-inch curved at my rig where I have so much peripheral vision, and I couldn't see. I was trying to use the button to look right and see where he was at, but I didn't know how much room he was going to give me into 1, and I was trying to run the seam, but I just didn't want to get into him, so I kind of just gave him extra room, and it affected me by getting down in that transition of the less banking in that first groove, and I got tight, and Smithley gained on me, and Preston was able to get away. So I think I should have got in line and tried to get a little bit of a draft and toe off of him to stay a little bit closer and maybe clear the 51 into 3. I ended up being 3 middle, which didn't help me too much in the end, but still glad we were able to make something happen there. It was a good time. You mentioned off of 2 on the initial start of that final green, white, checkered restart. I just went a little bit early, not even intentionally, but I knew I didn't want to go then, so I backed out. I was just trying to let them race it out and do whatever I could, but we just came up 1 spot short. But like I said, way better than I would have imagined. Plus, I did roll over about halfway through the race, and I was sitting on my roof in the grass in the front stretch infield. So to come back from that is pretty solid, I'd say.
You come back from that, you build on what has been a very strong start to the season. Absent a win, you've done just about everything else. And now we go to a car and track combination that, if my memory serves me correctly, you have experience with via the Replacements iRacing series, which ran the Phoenix old version with the street stocks back in April. So I would presume you're going to lean on that experience to try and get your first win of the season next Monday night, no?
Absolutely. I'm definitely going to have to practice for that one, though. I'm not used to these pedals, and there was a lot of on-throttle time today, almost wide open most of the race, and having the giraffe to help, too, made it quite a bit easier than short track racing. I'm going to have to get used to how this brake pedal feels and trying to do the right thing so I can have enough speed to go after another podium, and if not, our first win of the year. But either way, like I said before, I just want to thank Whitetail Smokeless for being on the car. I'm proud to give them another great showing, and thank you guys up here in the booth for airing this great event like every other Monday night, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Big thanks to Anthony Alfredo for the time. We'll see you next week, Anthony, down in the Valley of the Sun.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anthony Alfredo, P2 this evening. We've been unable to get Nick Sanchez, unfortunate after his P3, but we have a man who sings, dances, does just about everything else on his own Twitch stream and is now with us in the booth to talk about his P4 finish. Taylor Burris is with the driver of the number 51, Garrett Smithley.
Well, Garrett, you here with Garrett Smithley coming home in P4. And Garrett, you definitely were all over the place here tonight with battling for the race lead. Tell us how your race was and how conditions were on the track for you tonight.
Yeah, so first off, I didn't know this till, I don't know, about an hour before. I saw Josh Balicki's tweet about it, and I was like, hey, that sounds like a lot of fun. So messaged Ford Martin, so shout out to him for letting me be a part of it. Yeah, just got in, qualified third, had a really good qualifying effort there. Kind of cold turkey, only got a few laps, and what a blast, what a combination. Super late models at Michigan. I would never want to do it in real life, but it was a blast, going back to front to back. It was definitely one of the crazier races that I've been a part of, but this Monday Night Racing League seems like a lot of fun. I've kind of paid attention to it on watching the broadcasts and watching social media about it, so glad to be a part of it for the first time. It was a lot of fun.
Now, can we expect you to be possibly back next week when we take the street stocks over to the old Phoenix configuration?
I'm actually flying back from my grandparents on Monday. I think that I'm going to land in time to get back at it and do it. I was actually part of one of the I think it was the replacements league during the shutdown, and that was one of the races that we did with street stocks on the old Phoenix. So that was a lot of fun. I'm a little disappointed in my buddy Fast Pasta. We share a sponsor tonight, Whitetail Smokeless. I thought he was going to give me a little bit of a help down the back stretch, a little bit of two-car tango to get me to the front and get Whitetail Smokeless a victory, whether it be me or him. But it was really great racing up front. Victory Lane Oil Car. Got to give a shout out. My stream is watching right now on Twitch, so shout out to the Lean stream. They've always been awesome. My buddy D Natters actually painted this thing. I love the primer gray. I always love Thursday night, not Thursday night, the preseason Thunder from when the Cup guys used to go down to test Daytona, and they always have their primer gray cars. So I love that scheme. I think we're going to keep it for iRacing, but shout out to him for painting our Victory Lane quick oil change primer gray scheme for this deal. And Fort Worth screen printing on the car as well. Had a blast.
And we certainly had a blast watching you out there battling it out for the race lead. Of course, that is Garrett Smithley coming home in P4 tonight. And gentlemen, it's safe to say that even though with all the craziness we saw here tonight, tonight's race was probably an exciting one and a successful one for the Monday Night Racing crew.
Real quick, I want to cut in here really quick. Congratulations and welcome to eSports, Dave Moody. Thanks for coming on board.
Happy to be here, Garrett. Thank you, man. Good job tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, a wild race at Michigan. And Taylor, I'll turn to you first for the final thoughts. I don't think we expected, or at least I didn't expect, these cars to be so unstable. Nor did I expect the hockey-style hip checking that we saw on so many different occasions tonight. But ultimately, I think the unpredictability of the way these cars handled, especially in corner entry, made this race so great.
It certainly did. I mean, we saw a wide variety of different styles of racing. We saw a bunch of bump trapping. We saw the short track style aggressiveness with drivers taking it 3 wide into a corner, drivers hip checking each other. And then, of course, we saw some of the caution just trying to take care of the car and get to the end of the race. So we saw that all across the board with these super late models at Michigan. and they just put on an astounding race from start to finish. I mean, we saw drivers who started outside the top 30 work their way up to the front of the field and have a shot at winning this race. And of course, for Preston Pardus, who started 16th, we didn't even really see him till the last restarts of those green-white checkered attempts. So a great effort for Preston Pardus to take home the win, and exciting. It only just shows that Monday Night Racing is the place to be and to watch all exciting forms of motorsports.
And it was a bit of a bare knuckler tonight. There's no doubt about that. But I think these guys did a lot of learning, too, about exactly what they can do with a super late model at Michigan, and maybe more importantly, what they can't as well. But some great racing and a tremendous finish tonight.
Was about to say, Dave, that it took a while for us to finally get together and get you on one of these deals, but to make it onto an iRacing broadcast, an eSports broadcast, I would say probably worth the price of admission at the end of the day, no?
It sure was, man. I had a blast. Ask me back anytime. Maybe if you don't ask, I'll just show up anyway. Yeah, it was a great time, and I appreciate you. It was a lot of fun.
Don't think you need to ask, and I know we definitely wouldn't turn you away. Been a pleasure to have Dave Moody of the Motor Racing Network, and goodness gracious, I can't even think of all the places that you could follow MRN if you want to be involved. But do you have favorites, Dave, if people want to keep up with what happens on the real life side of things in the radio?
Well, your local Motor Racing Network affiliate, you can go to MRN.com and find your local radio station. Certainly on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90, where I do 4 hours every afternoon from 3 to 7 on Sirius XM Speedway. So, yeah, we stay busy out there talking NASCAR, kind of like working in the toy department at the grocery store, man. We know just how lucky we are to be able to do that.
A lot of fun and a lot of jealousy personally, but the good kind. But I know that you all are living the good life, as is Preston Pardus, as will a lot of people that will be tuning in over the course of the next week, because we have plenty of events coming between iRacing and Podium that you will want to tune into. Tomorrow night, it's round 4 of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series from Dover International Speedway. Can Garrett Maines go back-to-back? Who will make the climb up the ladder to try and lock themselves into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series for 2021? 40 drivers, 21 spots in the main game of sim racing up for grabs over the next 3 weeks. You can catch all the action 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night on twitch.tv/Podium eSports. Before Saturday, it's the Esports Drifting Association from the road course section at Daytona. Tune in to twitch.tv/Podium eSports at 1 p.m. for that. The next Monday night, our traditional doubleheader is back on again. It's the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge from Lime Rock on the Podium Twitch channel at 7:30. Before you can go to twitch.tv/Podium2 or Podium's Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Monday Night Racing's Twitter, wherever you may like, to go see round 5 of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring in Season 2. The street stocks at the old Skeena Phoenix International Raceway. We could properly call it PIR because it was PIR back in the day, but you'll see that broadcast at 9 p.m. next Monday night, December 14th. It is time to close out our broadcast of the Salute to Service 130 this evening from the virtual Michigan International Speedway. But a tremendous amount of thanks that we need to give, as always, to the team that helped makes it possible. For Ford Martin and Paul Sutton at Monday Night Racing and everything they do. For Mike Case and the team at Tufco Flooring. For our team at Podium eSports, Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, our producer Ryan Bauer, Taylor Burris alongside me, James Pike in the booth, and of course our special guest from the Motor Racing Network, Dave Moody. Thank you all so much for watching our broadcast. We'll dedicate it tonight one more time to all of our men and women and folks in the armed forces, to those who have served, who have retired, and who have given their life for the United States of America. We thank you for your service and hope to see all of you next Monday night when the Street Stocks tackle the old version of Phoenix.